Mike, I think I need to get a fresh one. Oh, 1 second. We're almost there, Holly. We're almost there. And then
Are we live? Yeah.
Not yet. Well, half live.
I want to talk about the holdout too in Arizona and Nevada.
Oh, yeah. And we are live. Say hello to.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Political Head Trauma, your Friday night fun show that is actually super nice tonight. We're in a good mood, as I know many of our viewers are. It's been a really hell of a week, don't you think?
How do I put it?
You're going to ask me what happened this week? I hope not.
It has been. It's weird. I feel like.
All right, just spit it out, brother. You forgot to say if Head Trauma had a.
Yeah. If Head Trauma had a podcast, it'd sound like this. I feel like it feels like a weight has been lifted. I mean, the gas prices has already come down, which is going to aid in helping the grocery prices come down. Now, all right, so let's lay this out. Gas prices are done by speculators. No big deal, right? I mean, lots of stuff are, meat is, everything else. And so the speculators are feeling like moving into next year, it's going to be easier for them to harvest their wares, if you will. And so they bring the gas prices down.
Gas prices trickles down into your eggs, your clothing,
everything,
your meats, all of that. Because if our truckers can't afford to move this stuff, companies can't afford to buy the stuff.
Trains, airplanes,
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really, really it's good for us, guys. I know there are so many of you that woke up that next morning. I mean, I've seen the liberal tier TikToks and everything, and people losing their ever-loving minds. And I would say that that's kind of how, I mean, we know firsthand what that feels like because we did go through the 2020 election in one of the craziest times of our lives. It was definitely probably the craziest of all time for our generation with COVID and everything. But we know the pain of that, of losing when your person doesn't win and thinking that we've lost our country, an election. But I think that the people that are freaking out now, a lot of it is regarding, they're saying that my daughter lost her rights and that women lost their rights. Well, women put this man in office, if we're going to be brutally honest, and you can still kill your babies in every state in this country.
It's wild that everyone on the right was afraid of the single suburban woman, and everyone on the left thought they had him on lockdown.
Yeah, they did.
But
they never talked to us. So
the crazy thing was when I listened to people go through the different states, the only state that maintained its percentages over last election was Vermont. Every other state lost at least half of their percentage overage.
Like California.
Yeah, California lost.
California is red except for the cities that have got people living on top of each other. And that's what's keeping it alive. This is what I've got on the house. 312 to their 226.
Oh, yeah. Well, the crazy thing is like
that's a different one. Sorry.
New York was what was New York sitting at 36% pro-Democrat? It dropped down to like 16 or 18. So everything's kind of turning, and I wonder if the Democrats are gonna, slink back to the the hovel they come out of, and if they're going to redraw how they do their rhetoric and their politics and everything else.
I think that if we do this right, if the Republican Party does this right, and it's about policy, not person, if we support good policy, both in the House and in the Senate, and we do this right, meaning that, I think, what's the justice that I love? Clarence Thomas. If he decides to resign and retire now, because he was kind of holding out, Trump could replace him. And we have a Senate that would replace him. And, there's a couple others that have talked retirement, and it would be, Trump could very well get 3 replacements over the next 4 years. But with that, and if the Senate is putting out great policy and the House is doing well with the budget, and these departments are getting, audited, even the Fed should be audited, especially the Fed. That's Elon Musk's whole thing, is Department of Government Efficiency, and to go in and clean it up. I'm not saying destroy any department per se. I don't want to make this above a PG rated show for him. But to go in and decide what budgets are needed, what overages are being spent, we got too many people in government. The government is too big. I think the FBI should definitely be audited. And I'm not talking necessarily about the agents. I'm definitely not talking about the agents. I'm talking about the powers that be that have kept a broken system broken. We need to figure out what it's going to take. And I am not taking Trump's protection lightly. I worry. If I'm advising him, go to Mar-a-Lago, don't come out. You've earned it. Try to sleep in. Just do your work from your own home, because I just don't think it's a safe time to have him out there. And I think we could lose a lot, and we know our government's capable of terrible things. I want to make sure that he's safe and the people who work for him are safe. I want to have Biden and Kamala be safe, and this transition to go well. And I'm sure there'll be another January 6th situation. There's been riots and different protests happening in different parts of the cities around the nation, but nothing that's uncontrollable. I think personally, I just don't think people were that excited about pulling the lever for her. I don't think that she, had that enthusiasm, not because she's a woman or biracial, not at all. Her policy was non-existent when she talked to the people, or it changed depending on the audience. And a lot of it was Trump's, what he'd already said. And I don't think it didn't sit well with people to where they were ready to wait 2 hours in a line to vote. They were holding strong. The people that sat there for 2 hours in our county, nothing. They weren't leaving regardless.
I would like to know what it was that lost the Democrats the election.
I think crime. I think economics. And I think wars. The Democrat Party has never been the party of war in my lifetime. And in fact, when even Clinton got in, he trimmed fat in the military.
He did, but he also entered quite a few little kerfuffles. No, what I wonder is, was it the woke politics?
Absolutely.
Was it the hysterics? Was it?
Look at Michigan. Michigan came out big time. The black male.
Yeah.
The black male, the Latino male.
Yeah.
I actually think it was Latinos that that got the win. Latinos and women. And I think that the Democrat Party now, I say the media, which is one and the same, but the media is making it sound like we didn't choose Kamala because she's a woman, and that we are racist and sexist. And the truth is absolutely that she wasn't the right woman. A woman could very well run this country, and she'd do a great job, and I'm all for it, but she better have policy that works for every person, not just women. I mean, this was a big issue. Abortion was a huge issue for so many people that are losing their ever-loving minds right now. And what I feel sad about is that these people, they're really afraid. That's a legit fear.
Mhm.
But I think they're buying into the rhetoric that the press has been selling. I mean, how do you make this make sense that Biden is going in and telling you that Trump is Hitler, and then a week later is saying, we need a peaceful transition. I'm here to help. You either believe he's Hitler or you knew it was all a lie to win a campaign, and you know you have to walk it back because the American people not only have spoken, but they have spoken out very loudly. And they gave the government a spanking on Tuesday. And we have to stay engaged. We have to stick to that Republican Party. Our party has this shot. And I'm saying it right now. I believe in the platform of our party, but a lot of our Republicans in Washington forgot who put them there. They have forgot the whole platform, and they're a problem. And if we have the same problem we had last time, we had John McCain last time, with Trump in 2016 trying to keep his promises. It was Republicans that stood in his way. He had the House and the Senate in 2016. This is a repeat, including Kamala's concession speech. It was just like Hillary's, almost word for word in most parts. Did you know that? They have their two speeches side by side. If you're not on X, Twitter, get on there, because that is a platform for free speech. And you're not going to like all the speech. I'll tell you that. It'll make your skin crawl sometimes, but it's so refreshing. If you're a person that hates other people, I mean, I'm seeing college professors come out telling Trump supporters they wish their kid is either unalives himself or they're killed in a school shooting.
It has been wild. What about this 4B movement?
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Okay, so I asked about this on Twitter and someone responded. They told me that the 4B movement is
Carson's sharing right now.
it's women swearing off men, essentially, and the B's come from no sex in Korean starts with the B, and no dressing up starts with the B, and no, so they call it the 4Bs. But
okay, so good for them.
Yeah,
Go ahead, you do you, boo. This is a free country still, and you don't want to have men in your life. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry. I think why would you punish yourself? To what end? That's like having a hunger strike. And is it because they can deny men, or is it because they're having a drought anyways and they might as well just go with it and make it stand for something?
I don't know.
So I'm curious, anyone that's watching, thank you for tuning in. We love it. I'd like to hear your comments regarding your feelings, because I know we have people on both sides that watch this. And I want to preface this by saying, you guys can debate all you want in the comments, but I really, in order to get some people's comments that maybe don't agree with us and not have them just troll us the whole show, I would really like to know what their worries are going forward. And if you think that Trump is going to have people round up in trains and all that stuff, like, come on. Republicans aren't going to allow that to happen. And we are going to allow, legal and safe people to get out of this country that don't belong here. Let's start with the gang members. Let's start with the Chinese soldier age men. Let's start with the people that came across that border that had not your best interest in mind. But look at Michigan. Look at Minnesota. I mean, these states came up big time for Donald Trump. And right now in the House, we are looking at 216 to 206 with Republicans leading, but there's still a few states, and I don't understand. There's counties in a few states that are still not in yet. And I thought they were going to, I thought Arizona was going to be a problem, and they were, but to get Carrie Lake out, and that disturbs me. I think Carrie Lake would have been an excellent senator. And I'm surprised that I just don't trust elections the way we have it. Our integrity is not there, but to have people go and wait so long to have their voice chosen on their president, but don't vote down ticket. Does that seem odd? To say, I want a different president. Yeah, I think DC's just fine.
Well, I don't. Maybe they don't see Carrie Lake as a solution to whatever problem they feel there is nationally, and maybe they feel, we can look at it as they're voting for or against the office holder.
Well, you see, Arizona right now is all red except for Phoenix and that lower county.
Yeah.
They're two. It looks like we did pick up one Siscomany. Oh, I probably.
Yeah, but I just want to let me throw this out there.
It's not even 1,000 votes apart.
Yeah,
that is a tight race.
There were some tight ones. I wanted to throw it out there. Stay tuned. I know right now talking about the election that happened. If that is not something you're into, we've got David Pyne coming on at 7:00, and we're going to be talking about David Pyne's specialty, which is
Homeland Security,
war, the threats we have to this country, which are numerous. They are threats aplenty. And it's all something that I think, aside from just being exciting to hear about, is something that we need to pay attention to. But here's the deal. Here's where my head's at right now with the election. I think the Republicans can only they have to work diligently not to screw this up, and they're walking a fine line on not losing any of their gains from disaffected Democrats. So they've got to pay attention to that, but they also got to try to hang on to their conservative base. And I think the best way they can do that, just if I'm thinking, is to preach and educate people on the 10th Amendment and then implement it.
Oh, yeah. That should be a day one thing.
Yeah, implement it in a way that that people can start moving around this country and seeking the home that fits them, seeking the home that they fit into, finding their community and their neighbors. And hopefully, if we start building little communities, like get your religious communities in one place, and they move forward that way, and you get your agnostic communities, and you get you get them moving that way to where they can build communities. Maybe we can eke out a few more years of this great nation.
Look, there are companies. This is the bottom line. When our economy is good, the citizenry is good. They're happier. There's less depression. There's more jobs. There's better pay. There's more competition in jobs, and businesses thrive when the economy is giving back to them. So, I mean, I've seen one report that Steve Madden has moved everything from China and is moving it back to the United States after this election. That's just one manufacturing company. I think you're going to see.
They make lady shoes, right?
Yeah, they make ladies everything, like bags and shoes and everything. But what you're going to see is it's going to be trickling in, and then it's going to be big, because if they do some tariffs against Chinese products coming in or something like that, American companies are going to want to be here, and that means jobs are going to be here.
What
for your kids?
But let's, in all honesty, lay down what the tariffs could mean.
I don't care what they mean at this point. The very thought of tariffs has got companies coming home.
But what, it could mean higher prices on stuff. and
It could mean lower.
hopefully it means better built stuff. But yeah, and I'm not knocking tariffs, but I'm not fully supporting them. I'm going to sit back and wait. Now,
What if we went back to how it used to be, where tariffs were taken and no IRS was taking your paycheck?
Oh, our
'Cause that's what
camera's gone weird.
Hey, not weird at all.
Why it's just that feed to Facebook. I may have to reset that feed to Facebook.
I'm on Facebook right now and I can see you.
Are you watching that on YouTube?
No, on Facebook. Hi, Chad. Hi, Parker. Thank you for tuning in. Hey, you guys probably have some opinion about your thoughts on the election and what you think. And if you are somebody, I know, Chad, you're not, but if you're somebody that
Chad, you're not somebody
woke up the next morning in absolute dread, legitimately, I want to know, what are you afraid of? And if you can track that back to, your own personal experience, something that's happened to you that you believe this election is going to cause that to happen again, or if it's something the media told you, because that's where we're at. The people that are losing their minds, they're spouting what they've been told and fed about Trump. And yet I'm sitting back here as a proud Republican who worked my tail off for this election. And I feel like you guys may hate the results, but you will benefit just like the rest of us. That we don't have to be a bunch of elites to appreciate what good policy, deregulation, lower taxes, independence in energy, what no wars, what that could mean for you and your family and for your income and for your prosperity, your abilities. Like, it's going to trickle down. It's one at a time. And then all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, I can write off my interest that I pay on my vehicle. I can write that off. Okay, Fed, thanks for the 8%. I'm going to write it off every year.
If that happens, that'll be fantastic. My vote was against the Democrat Party.
Yes, I know that.
And it was specifically on the First and Second Amendments. Specifically the first, just Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, and Kamala Harris coming out and begrudging that the First Amendment exists, and it stands in the way of them achieving the government they want. That is why I voted.
I looked for that. I looked for those blurbs, and I can't find them. I know when Hillary, brought it up, I think she was talking to World Economic Forum or something.
Was
that Kerry?
That was Kerry.
One of them. And it was so blatant. And it was almost like he didn't realize that you could see this as an American citizen and just watch this. It was like he was just telling them, hey, we have a problem. These different people naming freedom of speech, they're the problem because of misinformation. And here it is.
Yep.
So that was in September that he said that.
Mm-hmm. Not long ago.
And so the First Amendment is a threat to our democracy. First of all, we're not a democracy. Second of all, without the First Amendment, without the Second Amendment, you have none of the others. I mean, that's why it's first. And again, so many people went to X for news. Even people that aren't.
X has been on fire.
People who aren't Republicans went to X for news, either to fight with people who were or to get their side out. But this is the thing I'm seeing in all these arguments, is they're only quoting the media and what the media tells them. They're not quoting their own experience or, where that works with their argument. And that's frustrating to me because the media is a propaganda machine for both sides. They're going to frame it. I was in Milwaukee. I experienced the way people were treated, the way the speeches came off, the unity. And then I can say that having my husband's in the automobile industry, that industry has been hit so badly. People can't buy houses. Your kids can't afford houses. It's like not even in their wheelhouse to think about it at this point.
I just wonder if if the Democrats, and here it's funny, you've got two that are former, it's former operators in the Democrat Party, and now they're kind of I don't know, satellites of the Democrat Party. They still support the Democrat Party. I'm sure they still
Are you
act
talking
as.
about the three that talked?
I'm talking about Clinton and Kerry.
Yeah.
And then you got one that was a president, and they both, I wonder if they've sat back and thought, wait a minute, the freedom of speech matters. And the people, I mean, if you're not thinking, if you're an unthinking person, if you're not someone who's going to, I don't know, get critical about the things you hear. Because if you're a leftist or a Hillary Clinton supporter and you hear her talk, you probably automatically jump to support. Just like
when I hear Trump talk,
just like when you hear Trump talk,
Yeah.
like when Trump said he was going to give complete immunity to police officers, my gut froze. Because that is,
I didn't hear him say that.
he did, and maybe it was a mistake, maybe whatever, but
Yeah, I don't like that because
yes,
there's
because
bad in every job.
you don't give complete immunity to anybody.
No.
But he said that, and I thought, oh, that could go awry,
Absolutely. Just the perception of that is bad.
Yeah.
Because there are bad. There is bad in every job. It's like saying I'm giving complete immunity to doctors or religious leaders. You're going to have bad apples. So you've got to be able to give them a fair trial, and you've got to be able to protect them when they're waiting for that trial and all of that. But that's not what our country's about. We don't have the higher ups giving immunity to anybody, including big pharma. Can I just say that? I'm so sick of that. People are having problems with the vaccine. We're funding in research what a lot of these drugs are turned back around to sell them to us at 300% markup. And yet the taxpayer funded the creation of these drugs and the discovery of these drugs. We have such a broken system that I'm so happy that.
Wow.
Sorry for that, but if you can still hear me, I'm so happy that people like Elon Musk and Bobby Jr., I hope Ron Paul is on board.
Yeah.
I hope that people like this are going to provide that liberal, old school liberal mindset. That is this making us freer? Is this making us safer? Is this making us prosperous? That mindset. It was the liberals that were not against, they didn't like war, and they wanted free speech for everyone. And now it's just turned into a different thing. So I think that X has provided, I will watch CNN. I will watch MSNBC if I have to. But Fox isn't my favorite. I'm not, everyone that knows me knows I don't watch Fox News, but I try to feed my brain every side of the argument, because I think it's important that we know what these people are, one, listening to, because we know some people that won't watch anything but those, and they'll base their entire, mindset on what they're told by the media. And for someone like me or you, we trust the government this much. And so it's like, okay, what are they telling us? What is the agenda behind it? What is Fox telling us? What's the agenda behind it? And we kind of have to pull it in together into one thought. And that's why I like X, because even Democrats are telling you what they think, and they're being brutal about it, and they're mean. But at the same time, it shows you Trump derangement syndrome is real.
X has been fun today.
It's a good time.
It's been wild. Yeah, I wonder if, well, okay, let me, go off the hook for a second. I wonder if liberal women know what they're claiming. They're claiming they're going to act like conservatives.
What do you mean?
As a punishment to conservatives. They're going to swear off one-night stands.
They should do that anyways. It's unhealthy. It's unhealthy behavior.
They're going to swear off.
For both sides, for men or women, it's unhealthy. Oh my goodness. You're not going to need an abortion if you're not doing any of that. I'm ready to take that punishment.
Well, of course you are, because the conservative men are like, no, please don't.
Okay, and I don't want to go into anyone's looks or anything like that. But there is a thought of what these people look like, and
not all of them. Some of them are attractive and normal and don't have a septum piercing.
And this is the thing, I don't judge people on any of that. They can be any size. They can be any hair color. They
Not
can
all
have
of
as
them
many
have
piercings
face tattoos.
as they want and tattoos. The behaviors are not healthy for their bodies anyways. And this is not even a religious thing. I have my own religious beliefs, but yes, you get to kill your baby in every state still.
Here's who they're punishing. They're punishing
themselves.
No, they're punishing the sex pests, the liberal men, the feminist men who do feminism to get close to women because they don't have other means, so they're punishing them. And
I feel really bad for them. But you know what? You can say the beta males.
I can't wait until we see the videos of them coming out saying, I support you.
They are the ones who said it's going to be like Handmaid's Tale the day after Trump's elected. And what do? The day after Trump's elected is they put on a bonnet and put themselves into the Handmaid's Tale? Like, I'm sorry, that isn't Trump's fault. That's your choice.
Isn't the Handmaid's Tale that a disease hits the world and only a certain percentage of women are fertile? So those fertile women...
I've never watched one episode. Those
fertile women get put into a forced reproduction farm, I guess. I don't know how to put it.
So that must be why they say women will be in milking farms or breeding farms. One woman got up and said, I'm going to wake up tomorrow a slave. I was like, what? I'm sorry.
Oh.
How did you get there in your mind? And that was a black woman. I'm like, how did you get there in your mind to think that any one of us would ever tolerate slavery of any kind? We've got slavery happening right now, and Trump's going to abolish it. And it's human trafficking. It's human slaves right now all over the country, children and women. And Trump's been all about that. As president, he signed huge penalties.
I've got some questions about the immigration thing. So give me your vision of how the illegal immigrants here, how that is going to be solved.
First, there can't be blanket amnesty.
Okay.
That's first. Second, there's got to be a benefit for them to come out of the woodwork. Either offer them a green card, and that's if they're working, they're productive, and they can get a sponsor. But we have to reform the rules around immigration so that if somebody is got good intention and they're working hard and they believe in the American dream and they're trying to acclimate to American culture, there's got to be a path for them. I think that there still has to be something said, though, for those who snuck over the border. And I think that first and foremost, you get anyone that's committed a crime in this country out, not counting the snuck over the border part. A lot of these people came in on airplanes, just like you go into any other country. They just overstay their welcome.
I'm just wondering. I mean, I think if Trump, like I know he mentioned, or someone orbiters mentioned him using the military to round him up. And I think long term, that would be a visual that would hurt. See, I think so Trump only gets 4 years. He can't run again.
No.
So the Republicans need to support him, but they also need to make sure they do it in a way that's not going to burn the party.
Yeah, JD Vance is coming up behind him
as he carries those out. Well, not just that, but I mean, you've got in 2 years, you've got senators that are up, you've got Congress,
the midterms,
men and women that are up. So
I think it's bigger than that. I think people are done with the party in that sense, where you've got DC just trying to protect their jobs.
But I still think they need to make sure they need to, put their heads together and figure out a way to do this. And I've got some thoughts.
I've got one real quick one.
Yes.
And that is keep your campaign promises. Every single one of them that ran, the ones that came out of Utah, ran committed to Donald Trump and the policies, not the man, but the policies, and do for the people who elected you exactly what you went there to do. Good policy. To get our government down, and that Ukraine's waiting for money. They're going to get so much money in the next 2 months, it'll scare them.
Well, I think Biden signed, what was it, $6
billion. $6 billion. That's putting us near 300 billion.
Overnight, people. He just $6 billion to him. How much of that comes back to him?
These senators, these House of Representatives, they're responsible to hold strong on their campaign promises.
Can they defund the executive branch?
No.
Because if you defund it, you defund almost all the operations of government.
You can't. How can you defund the executive branch?
Well, they're supposed to have the power of the purse.
No, but what does that look like? What are you taking from them?
Don't know. That might be wild.
No, I'm serious. Are you talking about like defunding Biden to send money to Ukraine? Because our Congress is complicit in this.
I know. But anyways, here's my thoughts on the immigration question. I think you need to come down. You need to say, look, one, the federal government will give zero aid to illegal immigrants.
Yes.
We'll give zero aid to any asylum seeker that crossed through a border country to get here, a safe border country. So that'll take some paperwork, but like if you came from Honduras, your butt should have stopped in Mexico. You don't come straight here. So you say, aid is dried up. And then
what do we do? Send them back to Mexico?
And then they go by themselves. And then the federal government needs to say, we will bail out no state that continues to do this. So no state are going to get emergency funds from the federal government. If you continue to do this, no state is going to get, whatever support you deem you can give. And I think that's the ideal way that can be managed peacefully and with optics that has more voluntarism to it. And that way the people that stay are self-supportive. Another thing that goes with that is there's no free education for their children. So those who come here and have jobs, you sign them up and say, okay, each county or school district figures out what the per child cost is if they want to send their kids to that school. And those illegal immigrant children can still remain in that school, but their parents are going to cover that cost if they, breach the immigration.
I don't know what that looks like. I mean, I see the point. We've got schools are they're bursting at the seams anyway. And a teacher is spending so much time on kids that don't speak English. And a lot of that, I think if we look at the people that are here and they've been here a long time, I think if they're married to an American citizen,
Well, that's
that used
already
to
a
mean,
pathway.
it used to mean something. But I know a couple that are married to U.S. citizens and they're having a hard time.
Yeah, because it's all clogged up with
It's bad policy.
other people. Yeah.
Right from the beginning. This policy should be written by immigrants. It should be written by corporations, and it should be written by churches that all have on a board of folks who A, want to help these folks, B, could use these people's help for the ranchers and for, you know, manufacturing and lower paying jobs that maybe are hard to fill. But those companies then turn around and sponsor and stand up for these people that they're sponsoring.
Well,
and I think if they're being sponsored by a company, they should have a right to an education.
under
I know
or
it's running like crazy.
part of that sponsorship is that company says we'll cover the cost of that education. But under Jared's plan, we can call it that, there is no violent deportation. They will deport themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
If they aren't meeting a standard, you know, if they aren't living a life, or if they aren't, and if they are, spilled my beer. And if they are, we will, you know, they'll have the ability to,
I would give you this, but this is my nose rag.
They will have the ability to cover that themselves. And if a company sponsors them, the company can sponsor them wholly.
I think,
or sponsor them to the level that the person they're sponsoring requires.
Honestly, if we put too much cost on the companies, they won't want to do it. But I think immigrants should get a fair wage. And a lot of things that I've known is with the temporary green cards, these immigrants come over to do the farming, right? These immigrants want to stay and live in their home countries. They just come to the United States during, you know, the season to farm, and there's a word for that. I don't know what it is right now. They come over here because that's what they do, and that's what their lifestyle, and that's what they like, but they go home. And that's what they want. That's how they want to live. Now getting these green cards has been difficult. We have a broken immigration system. What we shouldn't have is a broken border. Just like every other nation, we should have the border. So people coming over, we know who they are, we know where they are, and we know if they're capable of running or, you know, acclimating to the nation, or if they even have intent. What is their intention? So right now, we don't know we don't even know how many. And with all these immigrants being displaced around the country, we've seen this in the election numbers. It's not necessarily about them voting in elections yet, but it is about 2030 when we do the census. They'll all be counted, illegal or not. They'll all be counted. And what happens is districts are redrawn when they're counted. States will get more seats. This all makes sense. If you're looking at this, I don't know, the left's plan, it makes sense why they've spread them out everywhere. Because when you look at the different districts and the way they voted and some of the exit polls and why they voted, it's very telling. And yes, there's a big plan to get more seats, even if they can't vote. It's about giving more power in government, which is, I think that's what the American people stood up against when they voted this week, and to eliminate this power that DC has. But yeah, they come over here and they're going to get counted in the census, not as voters, but as bodies in a district, and districts will change and they'll be divided up.
Well, states will get more Congress people.
They will.
Well, that's the thing. Would California,
Here, you got
at their cost, keep supporting the immigrants so that they can get the extra Congress people, the extra representation.
Yeah, this is what's the plan all along.
Well, and that's the crazy thing. When Reagan did the amnesty bill, you see California went from split and just went boom, all blue, and it's pretty much been that way ever since. It sounds like David is here. I'll go out and grab him. So keep talking.
Yep, I'm just going to keep talking. I'm happy with the election results, but it's not like glee. I understand people are in pain. I understand that. What's scaring me is that the reasons for being in pain. I love my neighbors. I love my community. I know we all are free thinkers. We all have different opinions and views. I don't want to be shouting from the rooftops, rubbing it in people's faces that we won, because it's very personal to me. Our win is beautiful. It took many miracles to get where we are today, and it's beautiful to see. And I just hope that people don't feel like it's the end of the world. I mean, if our side was able to survive these 15 million votes that are still unaccounted for in 2020.
It wasn't David. That was a false alarm. But yeah, how wild is that?
It is. And you guys understand these key counties that actually decided the election for Biden, either we're having record turnout across the United States in voting, record turnout. And yet these counties are short millions of votes. Even the Democrat Party saying, well, there's no way. But Democrats have brought this up. Where's Kamala's vote? But they're saying that their vote was stolen, that there was a problem in the software when they reset it, when they were doing the test runs. Now they're blaming the machine, saying that the voters who voted for Kamala weren't counted. And so I don't want to say they're denying the election results, but it is a very, I'm sure it's tempting for them to do. But the other answer could be that the election was stolen in 2020. I mean, those 15 million ballots didn't get into the count legally.
It's kind of crazy when you see those maps that people have made, or those graphs of, and sure, people could have voted more then because it was the first time the vote came to you. I mean, that could be it.
But you know what else they did when those ballots came in? If we were talking about illegal ballots, they had to put some Trump ballots in there too, to make it not look so obvious. So if they sprinkled Trump ballots in there, that would have inflated Trump's numbers. Made everything a little bigger. Yeah, everything would have been bigger overall. But the win, I hope J.D. Vance is a phenomenal vice president already. He went into the lion's den over and over and over, and he's amazing. He is an amazing guy. He could be number 48. And he could be he could do 8 years. And if we get the Supreme Court, more done in the Supreme Court, we've got the House and the Senate, and the House and Senate don't screw it up. I think this election has changed the party system for our generation. I don't know how Democrats get back in if they don't change their platform or the way they execute. Yeah,
do you think the Democrats are right now? I know a lot of their pundits are saying we've got to ditch the woke. We've got to eliminate that. That's got to.
If they're not saying that out loud,
stop. No,
they're crazy, because you have to admit.
Joe Scarborough saying that.
That conservative over on MSNBC.
Yeah, I know he likes to call himself that, doesn't he?
He's the only one that thinks he's a conservative, by the way. Maybe his wife, but
I don't know. I think Bernie probably thinks he's a heck of a conservative.
I mean, on the right side. He used to love Donald Trump too, by the way. They invited him to their wedding. They loved him.
I think that is a weird thing, what happened with Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, the left absolutely adored him.
Man, Donald Trump, what do you think it was? I'm wondering if it was the the true chink in their armor was when Donald Trump went on to Theo Von. I know because I think that was the lead off to Flagrant. That was the lead off to.
How about when he screamed fake news right out of the gate with
Well,
CNN?
No,
I
I'm
mean-
talking about this go round. It was podcast took over the space from your corporate media, and from Theo Von to Flagrant to Joe Rogan, and I think that wrecked him.
Wrecked him. Damn
Hardly
near killed
knew
him.
But I think that did it. I think that was the finishing move. The podcast, that's going to be where it's at, where it's long form, where
It's easy. You don't have to listen to commercials. You've got more in-depth conversations happening.
3 hours.
For Joe Rogan to endorse, I was impressed.
The FCC doesn't come down and control it. It's open. It is a free market election, like I imagine the election of Andrew Jackson was, or Davy Crockett, where he goes and stands on a stump and speaks his mind, where it's not controlled, and it can be adversarial, it can be positive, it can be whatever. But honestly, I think that's where it's going to go in the future. I think we're going to see politicians universally are going to have podcasts.
Yeah, I know.
I do know that Ted Cruz
has a great one.
Yeah, he started up and he became the #1 podcast in half a day.
His is great. It's short, sweet, and it's just filling you in on what happened in the Senate that day and where things are going. And I enjoy it.
I liked his first couple months of it, where he kind of had an interview. And I'm excited to see what the Republicans do, like what they do with the Senate leader, who they're going to put in there.
We have to admit there's a deep state. The Senate has to admit there's a deep state. I mean, I watched Joe Rogan's podcast with Pennsylvania guy who always dresses down, Fetterman, when he's asking him straight up, "Hey, O'Malley, it's a happy week." When he asked Fetterman straight up, like, do you realize that there's somebody that is telling certain senators that how they should run, like how they should do? And he had to sit there and say, "Well, I don't know what you mean." What are you talking about? You don't know what I mean. If you don't play ball for the party, they'll get rid of you. They'll stop funding you. You won't get reelected. They'll run someone against you and they'll throw tons of money at them. Here's where Mitch McConnell comes in. So whoever's going to take his spot is going to be someone connected, someone who's been there and who plays ball. So Trump has changed the party to be about America and America first and getting rid of the deep state, because we don't have a free republic with it. We don't. And it is just, we've got to see them. We've got to see somebody good, somebody trustworthy who decides what's best for the nation and is willing to stand up for it as the party majority leader. It's not Mitch McConnell, thank goodness.
Well,
and I'd like to see Mike Lee on the Supreme Court or Ted Cruz, either one.
Yeah.
But I'd like him to wait until Mike Lee's done with his.
Be a good one.
You had to be a lawyer. You get Mike
Wasn't
Lee,
he a lawyer?
Josh Hawley?
Yeah, I thought he was a lawyer.
Okay, where's he at? What?
I can't remember.
So the thing is if you get good people in, you got to make sure it's thought through though, because you don't want an open seat in Utah
Well, the reason I
because
like
he goes to the Supreme Court before he's up, or that could be bad. You could lose seats.
put the young guys in there. the
Mike Lee is young.
the freshmen that are 31 years old. They'll be sitting on the Supreme Court when we ring in.
I wonder how the press feels now about adding more people to the Supreme Court, because they got real quiet after Trump won. They wanted 9 justices.
They were arguing that in the
or
beginning.
12 justices. They've been arguing as close as 3 weeks ago.
We need to thank Joe Biden for talking them off that ledge, because Joe Biden was alive when Grant was president. And, he was fully mature when FDR was there. And Grant, the time between Lincoln and the end of Grant, the Supreme Court justices went from 7 to 17 and then back down to 9 and then back, they were all over the place. And
I think they wanted to add 3.
And they want to add 3 just to outnumber them.
But that wouldn't work. It'd have to be 4 because they can't have an even number.
Well, that's how FDR got his New Deal passed, was by threatening to pack the court.
And packing the court means making it bigger. And that was 3 weeks ago. They were talking about that. But now they have to dial it back, because what if Trump said, "Oh, that's a great idea.
Why were they
start
talking
right now?"
Why were they talking about packing the court?
Because we have conservative justices in their mind. They think if they added more, they could all get, especially if they have a Democrat as president and the Senate, which they had up until Tuesday.
No, there was a particular reason why they wanted to pack it then.
Roe Wade?
Nope. It was all about Trump. Trump's trials are ending up heading towards the Supreme Court, and they wanted to prime it so that Trump did not stand a chance.
They didn't have enough time.
No, they did not.
And I'm thinking, if any of you saw the alert, which I was really excited to see, when they came out and said that his sentencing here is November 26th. So many of you remember 2020 too well. And you remember watching and waiting, because we didn't have results that night. In fact, the next morning they switched on us. We thought we had the win that night, and they switched the next morning. And then there was the argument of all these counties that had these weird, strange happenings. And so we didn't know what was going to happen. Even January 6th, we thought that our Senate or our House members would come through and not justify the courts or the vote. The Electoral College folks would be like, they would challenge it. And yet there's no way you can challenge it. There's nothing in the Constitution that lets them not take the voters' will. They've got to make sure that goes through. So even January 6th, we were always on bated breath. What's going to happen next? Is it going to happen? Is Trump going to get this flipped around? Like, we all learned way more about elections those 3 months between, I think, than we ever wanted to know. But I was waiting again, where I was like, okay, I don't dare celebrate. It was midnight when he hit the number, at least when I was at the county and we saw the number come through.
Yeah, afraid more votes had come in.
I was worried.
Arizona and just topple it.
But we knew the votes wouldn't affect it, because he already hit the very standard. If they would have been neck and neck, or he had stalled and just stayed under, that would have been horrible.
Well, the thing would be is if he got the Electoral College, but the popular vote went to Kamala, it would be a huge argument.
Yeah.
But where he got both,
it kind of took
I think that's why Kamala, conceded so quickly. I think that is why the argument, we haven't heard any argument from the corporate media. There are leftist pundits that are, do podcasts that are having lots of arguments, but it's pretty good. And my favorite part is watching all of their talking heads who run polls the day before come on and say Kamala's got it in the bag. She's going to sweep
yeah.
this.
It's the 2016 moment. And I only can say it's like watching somebody eat a
Crow.
crap sandwich
and
be like, this is good.
I forget the guy's name, but he's like, I'm going to go to my house and I'm going to take a month off. I'm like, you'll be taking 2 years off, but I'm going to take a month off. I've really got to reset. I got this so wrong. Because he was saying Kamala's going to win every swing state. Kamala's going to sweep the popular vote. Kamala's going to get all that. But here's what I really want to know. And I think the Republicans should seek this info out. On a graded scale, what was it that drove people either for Trump or against Kamala? Was it the woke politics? Was it the immigration issues? Was it? And they need to focus on those and make those priorities if they want to set up JD Vance, say, for 2028.
Yeah, they're doing all that. Those exit polls are very telling. The woke mentality is big, but so is economy and the wars and immigration.
Yeah, and
those are the top three.
I want to see Republicans in Utah should take note of this. If your voters send you a mandate, pay attention. The voters, what was this? 8 years ago, voted in Utah to legalize cannabis. I'm not a cannabis user.
Medical cannabis.
Don't care. No, they voted to decriminalize cannabis.
Yes, but they didn't vote on that ballot. They didn't vote to make it recreational.
Well,
they voted for municipal.
And I remember our state reps and our senators just ignored it. So I think, and they can probably afford to in Utah right now. But, I don't know. I mean,
I don't want recreational cannabis legal.
I don't care either way.
I think it hurts a city. I think it hurts communities. And why? You got Arizona, you got Nevada. It's legal there. Get it there. If it's not illegal here, I think it has a medical usage. Absolutely. But I think I don't want to see pot shops on every corner. I think it's damaged some really great cities, starting with San Francisco when they first did it.
I think
Las Vegas.
I don't think it was
Denver,
the recreational marijuana that destroyed those places. I think it was the overall progressive politics.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. But the exit interviews they did with a number of people. One guy in the interview I watched said, I had to hold my nose and go for Trump because I want my kids to have a future. I don't want my kids going to war. I want my daughter safe. And I think that we need to be able to get out. I need to be able to support myself. And I think that Trump is my best shot at all of that.
Yep.
And
all right, David is here.
And they remember 2016 to 2020, and their lives were better under Donald Trump.
We're going to be right back.
Hi, friend.
David, how are you?
Good.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
How are you?
Hey.
He spilled beer, so it smells like a bar in here.
Yeah.
Like your shirt. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Gosh, I was seeing doom and gloom on your page prior, so
Oh,
I'm going to bring that up because
I was really worried.
I was too. But when you worry, I worry because I don't worry until you tell me to. I'm like, I don't have the inside knowledge that he has.
That's a good policy. Yeah, that's what I tell my family is don't worry. Don't worry unless I tell you otherwise.
I probably, if Trump had not won, I probably would have been on the phone with you the next day. So would have a lot of people.
Yeah.
But, I've got a 14-year-old son and I'm trying to see, they've got ROTC at the school and it looks really cool. And he's kind of thinking about it. And I was like, Air Force, and get your grades up. So you go to Officer Training Academy, so that because I want to see him flying a drone and being able to
Yeah,
be a
drone
part
would
of
be
the
good. That'd be
military and
really
have
cool.
his college paid for if he wants it, or a business perhaps
Yeah.
that he wants to do. But it's not a terrible idea under Trump. It scares the hell out of me under a Democrat president.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't want them being the commander in chief of my child's life so flippantly. So
Yeah.
we should probably save this for the show because this is good stuff.
Yeah.
You want me to wear these?
You don't have to.
Okay.
Okay. We don't even have to. We don't have to listen to anyone else talk.
I like to hear myself because my throat kind of hurts and my nose is running like crazy. So I look like I'm snorting coke or something, because you know how people mess with their nose. Mine is allergies.
Yeah, I can put those.
I don't understand it. I never had them until I started working out at the racetrack, and I think it's dust. And
Brake
now
dust.
I'm just super sensitive to
It's all the,
even like powder in my makeup.
Really?
Makes me my nose just starts running.
it's
struggle is
all
real.
the brake
Yeah,
dust.
suit up.
So, all right, we'll get this
Do you have to
popped
read-
over.
Did you just do a pause on the show?
Yes, so we could sit down and we could do the stuff. All right, I'll get everything turned back on here. Boom. All right, and we're back with David Pyne. Now, David, let's go ahead and have you introduce yourself. You got a lot of accolades to run through, so let's have you go ahead and run through them real quick.
You bet. Well, first of all, thanks you guys for having me on the show. It's
Thank
great
you.
to be with you in person.
Yeah.
This time.
Yes.
We've been on a couple times before, and it's just been Zoom. Yeah, so I am I'm a former Army officer, a combat arms officer. Didn't serve in combat, but I served on the U.S. Army headquarters staff back in the 2000s, and then I moved back west after being in D.C. and working in kind of around the Pentagon for the Department of Defense and Missile Defense Agency for 6.5 years. I moved to New Mexico and ran for state senate. Decided to drop out because I realized that this New Mexico state senate was never going to be Republican, and that I could sponsor the best bills and not get anything good passed. But I think I would have won that race. Moved to Utah, back to Utah in 2008, and helped out Senator Lee as his national security policy advisor during his 2010 campaign. And he told me, actually, he's told me recently, earlier this year, that I'm the one who taught him how to think about foreign policy. So he made some compliments to me before, and I'm like, not sure what he was talking about, so I actually gave him a lot of briefings to kind of help him understand foreign policy and national security issues better. But most recently, I've been working as the president of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, oftentimes referred to as the EMP Task Force. And I work with Bob McEntee, he's the state executive, state director. Yeah, he's a state director. And then I also work as the chairman of the Utah Republican Veterans Caucus.
Awesome. That's awesome. And we've had you on before. And actually, those of you that probably remember the show he was on, we went home kind of feeling really on edge with the whole EMP talk.
Welcome to Doom and Gloom. It's
I learned
on.
a ton about EMPs. And, we have a lot of people, especially O'Malley, people that live their life with just being prepared and just feeling settled and prepared for whatever happens. And I went home with that same mindset. My husband's had that mindset for a long time, thank God. But it's like, you have to think that way. This is the times we're living in. No different than when we were children and nuclear war was a real threat. We were afraid. That was like our nightmare, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so you can't really prepare for nuclear war. And yet, I don't think, if somebody puts it on, we have one city bomb, doesn't the fallout kind of affect all those people around it? If not immediately, but years down the road with illness?
There's a lot of variables. It depends on the yield of the warhead, whether it's an air burst or a ground burst. Obviously, a ground burst is going to have fallout.
But what's good is your water supply going to do, or your food supply eventually?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you prep for nuclear war? That's a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
Lots of plastic and duct tape.
Fortunately, nuclear war is not the main threat we face. I mean, I'll say that we've never been closer to nuclear war, but what I'm really referring to is probably cyber attack,
Right.
number one, and super EMP is another possibility. Either one of which, super EMP attack could actually kill more Americans than nuclear war. So we wouldn't have the fallout, wouldn't have the mushroom clouds and the cities destroyed, but we would have a total breakdown of our civilization, the loss of our critical infrastructure, which
and civilization will destroy itself in an emergency.
That's right. What supports the population of the United States is our critical infrastructure, whether it's food and water distribution and purification systems, our transportation system, obviously,
supply chain.
Power is critical, to everything.
Well, as long as we all have desks to get under, we'll be fine, right?
Well, you can't protect yourself from
Wasn't
a
that
super
the
EMP
answer?
with a desk. In fact, it actually affects underground natural gas lines that it can cause to catch fire. So,
which contaminates
the huge
whatever's
electric
underground.
charge going out.
yeah.
An EMP?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the charge itself, it's not going to, unless you're touching something that's, potentially dangerous, it's not going to
But I
give you
mean,
a shot.
for the natural gas lines,
The actual
Does it
charge
send
affects
us
your gas lines?
to send a charge out, is that what affects the natural gas lines
Yeah,
underground?
it can fry the natural gas lines and cause them to catch fire. We could have rage unit controlled fires, particularly in the cities. So we live more of a safe zone that I think we have less worry.
Yes.
Obviously, the more rural area you can be in, and if you have land and farmland, that's an ideal situation for any kind of massive natural disaster that occurs or
You said natural disaster.
existential attack.
That's a man-made disaster.
No, I
right?
was just going to say that, or existential man-made attack.
Well, an EMP could be caused by a solar flare.
That's right. Yeah. So we have the man-made EMP, which would be, an attack situation from Russia, China, North Korea, or Iran. And we also have, naturally occurring EMP, which would occur in the event of a kind of a super geomagnetic storm of G5 magnitude. We actually had a G5 super solar storm recently, but it was kind of a low rated, that's kind of a spectrum. So G5, there's like kind of a lower intensity, super geomagnetic storm. And there's like the higher version, like that's kind of out of control, like a Carrington event, which burned, electrocuted some telegraph users and whatnot. So and it supposedly melted some rail lines. I'm not sure. That's kind of I guess disputed. Our former executive director.
Isn't everything though? I
Yeah.
mean, the government is good at hiding things for our protection, but at the same time, letting some things out. Do we ever know what caused the Maui disaster?
I mean, I think it was almost more of a man-made disaster. I mean, some people have had conspiracy theories that it's some kind of laser attack, whether it's from China or from the deep state.
I mean,
or
it
from
sounds crazy, but at
something
the
like
same
that,
time,
but-
when they don't give you information, people
Mhm.
will fill the vacuum. They will.
Yeah.
Well, my thoughts on what would China have to gain in doing it and then not announcing, hey, we've got this stuff, we can do this to, as a negotiating ploy. So I don't think it would have come from China. Now, I mean,
They gain power, world power on the world stage.
but they didn't use any negotiating ploy. Now, maybe Oprah wanted to buy the adjacent property to hers or something that I could see, but I do think it was mismanagement of the local
Exactly.
area, as Democrats tend to do.
Yeah, that's the most likely explanation, is that it was just Democrat mismanagement. I mean, but they were doing some crazy stuff. Like the policemen were telling people they couldn't flee the
Yeah.
fire zone,
They couldn't flee. They were
so they had to like
slowing
stay and
down.
get burned.
I
I
had
mean,
friends there that were waiting out in the ocean.
we have a beach condo there, and
Did it survive?
Yeah, so the area surrounding our condo survived. It's my parents' condo.
Must
but,
not be a very good
we've been there
condo.
Does it
Oprah-
have a blue roof?
Oprah didn't want it.
No, but that whole area survived. But like the most popular area, like the beachfront with all the shops and all that, and the boats, got burned to the ground. Just like a really historic landmark, and so many deaths. And
What happened to the kids?
I wrote at the time that Biden was giving, I think, $750 to each. I think it was each family.
Yeah.
It wasn't even per person. It was like per family. And I did the math on how much money we're giving Ukraine, and it was like $7,000 per person.
Oh,
I mean, like
Well,
it was 10 times more.
yeah,
That's
at
per
least.
person prior to the war, not after the
Well, we're looking at almost
meat
$300
grinder,
billion.
because now it's more. It's
Oh, now it's
obviously
way more.
multiplied
Yeah.
That's
because
millions of dollars per person in Maui if
Yeah.
they were to compare.
But that's just the mentality of the Biden regime, is that they prioritize foreigners over Americans, and that's why Kamala lost so convincingly. I think is because they put illegals in 5-star hotels, but veterans on the street that are homeless,
It's true.
they won't do a thing for.
North Carolina victims, all that.
We're still waiting for that $750 check to people in North Carolina.
I would
It's
like
outrageous.
I would like to see a breakdown on the exit polls. Before you came in, I was mentioning this of what drove people to vote for Trump or against the Democrat Party. Was it the immigration? Was it the economics? Was it the war status? Was it
The woke mentality.
Yeah.
the woke?
All that.
Was it all of that? I mean, I know I voted specifically to defend the First and Second Amendments. I don't normally vote in national elections. I voted specifically on those grounds. Hearing John Kerry come out, what he said in September, what Hillary said in October, and what Kamala said in October, they all threatened the First Amendment, and all of them Democrats.
And Tim Walz.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Tim Walz. I mean,
Tampon Tim.
don't make me forget about the super coach. But
Man, we dodged one hell of a bullet, folks.
We really did. Yeah.
isn't it funny how Democrats spent the last 12 years demonizing men, and particularly white men, and now they at the end they turn around. I mean, Tim Walz, he was, I think, selected to try to bolster that. and then they had
Did you relate? Were you like, that guy's like me?
We were tight. And then
Said no man ever.
Had an affair with the communist Chinese party boss's daughter. That
seriously,
he dumped after using her, and just a real piece of work.
He
was lied about his military service.
He lied so
said he served in
much.
combat. He said he was rank. He wasn't.
He's just a knucklehead, and he just says anything that'll come to his. I mean,
Wikipedia right now calls him a commissioned officer in the National Guard. I'm like, you forgot the non part.
Yeah.
But it's just everything about it. And then they got that white dudes for
you can't make this up.
Yeah.
This is laughable.
I thought they were accidentally playing a homosexual pornography on the TV when I first saw that, like a lead off to it.
This is like a Mel Brooks film.
That was the most feministic males I'd ever seen in my life.
Males. That's right.
But anyways, I want to get on to the back to the sidetrack us. I want to get back to this EMP, the cyber attack. That thing, we had two of them in the last 3 years.
Oh well, we
had
leaving Milwaukee. We had one, and all the airplanes. Remember,
that's right.
All the planes got stuck.
That was probably likely China. I mean, when we were there at the RNC convention, a lot of our
people didn't get home for a week.
didn't make it.
Some of them.
Did you take Southwest?
I got out on Delta. I was
Okay.
the first flight and only flight out, but I thought I'm going to be okay because Senator Lee's on my plane.
And then all the other Delta flights got delayed.
They all got canceled or delayed after we left. So we got on later. We were delayed, but man, I just bless the people who work at the airport because it was not a good time to be an employee for any airline.
Yeah. That was probably a dry run for, China or from
It's like
another cyber
a
attacker.
test.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be a state for a cyber attack. Cyber attacks are relatively cheap to employ.
Absolutely
Yeah,
right.
this affected
That's
the
the
world.
scary thing. It could be,
And
that's where you meet the mad scientist out there, the lone wolf mad scientist, that a hard enough cyber attack could kill half the country.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
absolutely could. Yeah.
I remember when they shut down, what was it called? The New England gas lines. What was it? The
Colonial Pipeline.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, the
14
Colonial.
states were affected, no gas,
And-
gas stations for 14 states simultaneously.
From what I understand, we think that was
Society
a
implodes on
small
itself.
actor, not a state.
I thought it was Russia, but I think it was somewhat affected with Russia. At least that was the claim.
But they demanded payment in Bitcoin.
Yeah. So it was probably like a Russian affiliated. So that's the thing is what, like you mentioned, doesn't have to be a state-based actor, but a lot of the attacks are from, state affiliated, like private groups, private hackers.
And it's probably a 14-year-old who got 5,000 or something. And he's like, look what I can do.
Yeah.
If I remember, they wanted 5,000 Bitcoin. And 5,000 Bitcoin at that time was,
What, 80?
500,000,
Was it at
5
80
it was
grand?
like the economy of I don't know, a South American country, not Venezuela, because they lack an economy. But I mean, it was huge. I think Bitcoin was at the time was like 65,000 a coin, and they wanted 5,000 of them. It was a
I
ridiculous
think it
number.
was like up to 80,000 a coin.
Yeah. I thought it was 5 million was the equivalent. but
Something
I
like
could
that.
have been
Yeah,
wrong.
it was a crazy number, and
Yeah,
I think they got paid.
they did.
That's insane to
What
think
choice?
about.
Yeah. What choice did they have? And they could do it again at any time.
Don't you have to have just a better hacker to be like, I'm in, and then decide to help the Pentagon? I mean, this is my biggest fear, that young people are learning this type of thing, and they don't have to be from China. They could be here in the United States, because it's actually been very profitable to hold companies' data hostage, to hold people's cell phone data hostage. And it's hard to track them.
So I went to a recent event. I think it was like in June. I'm on the Cyber Intelligence Committee for 47G, which is the organization that is chaired by Chris Stewart, former congressman,
Awesome.
our congressman here in Tooele, and he said that he said it was declassified, but he did a lot of cyber work on the House Intel Committee, and he said that China doesn't just attack us like hundreds of thousands of times a day. It attacks us millions of times a day.
Oh,
Yeah.
without
Russia
a
attacks
doubt.
us about 1 million times a day. So it's actually several times more that China attacks us.
I think that, Russia has leaned heavily into that, where China is trying to become a budding world military. I think Russia recognizes they don't stand a chance economically. They can't afford to compete. I mean, right now, Russia couldn't afford to compete with, say, England or France. So I think they're leaning into that, which is the Ukraine is showing the example of that with how they've been prosecuting their side of the war using a lot of drones, a lot of future technology in their war fighting.
Our technology,
Well,
our military stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We've unilaterally disarmed our military to send weapons to them, and then they've used them all up, and now we don't have enough weapons
And
to
how
fight
we're
Russia.
not
and
on the
China.
doorstep of World War III, considering that North Korea is over there now. China's already met with them. Like India, thank goodness, is pretty much supportive of Trump, and they like this election. But who knows what their loyalty
India
will be.
doesn't like China.
Yeah, India's a longtime Russian ally, and they're never going to end their alliance with Russia.
Yeah, but they don't like China.
That's true.
That's the thing. India and China generally have a skirmish once a year in the mountains.
Yeah, although they just did a border deal, which is a landmark border
That's
deal.
Really?
huge.
And that was to me like a big warning sign because
Yes.
China is securing its southern flank, ready to blockade Taiwan and then go to war with the U.S.
But everyone who's done a
Respond.
border deal with China got invaded by China within a year.
Was that?
Everyone who's done a border deal with China got invaded.
Well, Russia didn't.
Nepal did a border deal with China. China invaded.
Mhm.
Vietnam did. A lot of people, I've said it on the show 100 times, China invaded Vietnam after we left.
Yeah, they did.
Also Cambodia invaded Vietnam after we left. That was a proxy war between Russia and China. And so China, maybe not with Russia, but then again, they did a border deal with Russia that went up against Siberia. And they're like,
Well, the
keep
problem is
that.
like Asian countries, like I just saw an Indian comedian that was really good, but he was talking about how, yeah, maybe white people may hate someone that's not their color or whatever. That's racism, but there's a racism that breeds in Asian countries.
No.
They hate who was ever on their border, and they hate, we don't like so-and-so doesn't like, we don't like, Iraqis, and they don't like Filipinos. And there's all these different arguments that I didn't have any idea. Those cultures are so different, but they don't like each other.
Yeah, I mean, the liberals teach us that it's only white people. You can't be racist if you're not white.
Yeah.
You can't be racist. In fact, the most racist people today are against whites, and it used to be the opposite. It used to be the whites were the most racist.
Yeah.
That's enough about the Democrats, though.
But with this thought, this doesn't cost a ton of money, especially in a communist country where they're finding the best minds and pulling them in, whether
Right.
they want to be there or not, and they expect results. So 1 million plus attempts on our system every single day is probably really cheap for them, considering what they get in return if they do beat our system.
Absolutely. And FBI Director Chris Wray stated just months ago that China has an army of cyber attackers that's 50 times more than all of the FBI agents combined.
Amazing.
If the FBI dedicated every human resource it had to cyber defense or cyber offense, it would be 1/50th of what China has. China has at least 60,000.
When you're a communist nation,
Cyber.
you have the beauty of ripping a child out of the home at 6, 7 years old that's very good at computers or whatever, and putting them in a boarding school style and making them the best at something. And I could see that they're just like they're training, professional sports athletes and gamers. They're probably got a whole, or violinists for that matter. They've got a whole academy that is just software engineers or software code writers or basically just hackers.
Yeah.
To benefit China or Russia. Russia's probably exactly the same way. And it's terrifying because how do you stop it? And why is our grid not, you can spend 300 plus, or maybe just barely 300 billion in Ukraine, but you can't spend 5 billion to reinforce our grid.
Yeah. $50 billion is the amount that we've assessed would harden the entire grid against EMP and cyber attack.
Was that under Obama? And that he decided not to do it? Because I know it's gone up considering when they first brought this to his
initially.
attention.
So our executive director that passed from cancer a couple of years ago, tragically, his name was Peter Pry. He had planned to do a kind of a lower amount, and under the Grid Act of 2010, it was a $2 billion funding that the House approved unanimously under Nancy Pelosi's speakership. And then it went to the Senate Energy Committee, and it was killed by Lisa Murkowski, who just horrible Reno, who's, never Trumper and all that good stuff. Romney ally, it's probably no worse vilification than to say that they're Romney associates.
That works.
Which is sad.
Everyone in the country knows what that means.
Yeah,
not just Utahns.
We have one of the very best
Or
ever
Liz
senators, Mike Lee, and then we have one of the very worst. And I don't mean moral. I think he's a good guy morally, but his ideology is very
policies,
liberal.
DTS.
Yeah,
Morally,
He
he's
hates
great,
Trump.
but he worships at the altar of a large government.
Yeah, deep state government.
He wants a government that needles in your life, and he's one of those that brings it with a kind voice and makes you feel warm and fuzzy while he marches you into his chattel servitude.
It's not.
Yeah,
wrong.
I mean, he's been. I think he's voted with Biden more than Trump.
Well,
so.
I think he's part of that collective in DC
Yeah.
that thinks that government knows best, and not any government, the special elite government, the
Right.
ones that have been in government a long time,
The
the ones that are
oligarchy.
connected. Yeah. And it's like, if an election like this that we just had, if it doesn't wake those people up that, hey, we're done. We're done. You may be the nicest guy in the room. And Mitt Romney is a very nice person. I've had the honor of meeting him and his wife, and we
Yep.
talked issue after issue. But one thing that he doesn't get over is he doesn't get over his hatred for Trump. And it's deep. And it's more than just, oh, this guy's a pompous ass. It's like, hey, why don't you just admit Trump is going to hurt your plans for the nation, which
Right.
is the government knows best.
And that's the thing is, like you said, the uniparty, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, they view Trump as a threat, not because he says mean things or he has mean tweets, but because his policies put America first, and that they find the most threatening. You know,
Right.
that's the sad thing is they've been putting America last for decades.
Well,
putting China first.
For its own good, right?
I think we should rebrand it. He puts Americans first.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, and I want to circle back to the cyber attack. So I've looked a little bit
Hi,
into
David.
quantum computing. Have no idea what that is, but smart people do. And they say it makes a computer fast and bold and strong. And then you've got AI coming. Could those be bulwarks against cyber attacks?
They could be, yeah. I mean, there's some things. I mean, we've kind of AI oriented our nuclear response time. You know, because we just if a nuclear missile was incoming, it was 5 to 7 minutes of warning time. I mean, the amount of decisions and orders that need to that need to go through. There's a risk that no orders would be given because it would just take too long. So, so we use AI to kind of come up with nuclear response scenarios to every.
Can we stop a nuclear war coming, a nuclear missile coming? Do we have the
No.
technology to stop it?
We have the technology to stop it. We just don't have them. We've never invested in the missile defenses. You know, sadly, I mean, you know, we have people who still believe that Reagan brought down the Soviet Union through a missile defense system that was never built. I mean,
Star Wars.
Nothing could be
right?
more laughable. You know, I mean, that's just not true.
Didn't the Congress not give him the money for Star Wars?
Yeah, they ultimately killed it in Brilliant Pebbles was kind of the latest version of it. They killed it in 1989. I think it was 1990 was the final vote under Bush. That they killed what used to be the.
Did they not
SDI
know
system.
where we were going? I mean, yes, the iPhone wasn't invented yet in 1990, but did they not see how quickly the technology era came into play, and that, yeah, not everybody plays nice in the sandbox. We have to have the best. I mean, we're paying as much as small nations hold GDP in just our military.
Right.
Why wouldn't we equip our military with the best innovative strategies while protecting our nation at the same time? That's literally in the Constitution. That is the government's job.
Yeah, and it's also part of every oath that every member of Congress, every president, every vice president swears to, every member of the cabinet, and it's a tremendous dereliction of duty that they've left us unprotected. You know, the entire American people, 285 million Americans, and 50 million legal and illegal immigrants in this country. Unprotected against, super EMP attack and cyber attack that could kill up to 90% of Americans in a year.
I would argue when the squad took the oath and they heard to protect and defend, in their mind, they pictured little Timmy who wants to be Tammy protecting them against the evil white man. And that's how they took their oath. So I think they honestly took it with a misunderstanding of what it meant.
And David makes an excellent point. And we never seem to go to war to win either. Under Obama, you saw it. Remember with how they told the military to engage, and they're not to shoot. They're supposed to wait until someone shoots at them. It was so insane. I mean, from Vietnam on, it was like, wait a minute. We've got superb trained killers out there who have lived a life of patriotism for this country, and they go in. They're not there. That's not their job to create, the peace and flower. Once we're there, we should be there to win. And the bureaucrats should make sure they don't go there until it's necessary for that type of response.
Well, even more than that, I mean, Afghanistan was an unwinnable war, so we shouldn't have been there in the first place. I mean, we should have sent special forces, and killed bin Laden, the first year, and then we should have pulled out.
Or just waved $100 million underneath the Taliban's nose and said, bring us his body.
Absolutely.
This is yours.
You wouldn't even need
not
that.
100 million, but maybe 10.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we
Sure.
could have probably offered a dime. That runs that economy
Didn't
over there.
Bush
back
do
then.
that with a lot of people, though? Didn't he put contracts on them?
He did. I think so.
Here's what
Yeah,
Bush
they
did
were all
do.
in cards, playing cards.
Here's what Bush did do in
That's what I'm
Afghanistan is he gave them 48 hours and invaded on hour 40. And so Bush was a tool of
Shock and awe.
of a military complex, and he stood to make money, as did his vice president.
Cheney's the worst.
The
Worse than Romney.
The leader of Halliburton, who got the no bid contracts. I mean, but I want to circle back to this AI. They've put AI into our nuclear response, and I want to tell a story real quick, an anecdote. So Ronald Reagan caught flack from the Iron Lady because in 82 or 83 there was a test going on simultaneously. You had Gorbachev on one side and you had Reagan on the other.
Yeah.
And both of them refused to turn the keys in response. And they didn't know that. They found out later. But Reagan was a refuser. He's like, I'm not going to respond with, ending the world. And Gorbachev said the same thing. And England was mad. She called up Reagan, according to his one of his staffers. She called him up and cursed him out. How dare you do this? How can you do this? And it was a month after that Reagan set up his first meeting with Gorbachev. And she got mad at him again because she wasn't included on that discussion. Yeah. But that's interesting. But I am concerned that if we set AI in with these automatic controls,
that's dangerous.
What happens with the false alarm?
So it's not automatic. It kind of just enables us to decrease our response time. So there's no automatic
still
function.
Pass through.
Yeah. So
maybe
AI
three.
doesn't push the button.
Russia actually does have an automatic AI system that can be turned on and off. It's called the perimeter or dead hand system. And what it does is, if there's already been some kind of attack on Russia's either nuclear defense system, early warning radars like the Ukrainians are doing, but that's followed up with a missile strike on major Russian city or their nuclear systems, again, as Ukraine has done, so which is kind of scary with our support. Then they can turn a switch on and activate this perimeter system, which even if all of the Russian leadership have died, it automatically will execute a nuclear retaliatory response with every nuclear weapon, strategic nuclear weapon in the Russian arsenal. And we just be completely obliterated.
Are they like pre-designated targets, or does it respond to where the attack came from?
So we don't know exactly how that works, but I think they have just like what we have, which is essentially pre-programmable nuclear attack scenario. So they would be able to, once they activate it, they would be able to activate it with whoever the nuclear aggressor is. And there's only one country on the earth that would attack Russia, and that's the US. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, unlike us, we have all of our nuclear weapons are pointed at empty oceans. So if it would actually take 5 minutes to reprogram our ICBMs to hit Russia or China just before they can even be launched. And then 15
So it'd take
minutes,
5 minutes for us to program them to
reassign
launch
for a new target.
Locations.
Yeah, and it would take 15 minutes for our submarines, or nuclear missile submarines.
Takes 15.
Yeah, just
for them, because they have to. Oh, there's probably a lot they go through.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
they have to get to the right
pushing
depth.
that button is the end of humanity as we know it, because it starts a chain of events, right? even if we wiped out Russia for some reason or the major cities, if they've got a system that will automatically hit its targets, dead or alive, computer systems are scary because they can't say to themselves, I don't want to be the first one to start nuclear
No, they
war.
don't care.
And it's that human component. But at the same time, we're living in a time where people, believe, like in Iran, they're doing a service to end the world. To them, it's an honor. And if they've got nuclear weapons,
They do.
they want to go out. They want to go out on top. Like, hey, we did this as martyrs. We're going to die, and we're willing to die.
Yeah.
To rid Jews from the world, to take on the West.
I actually think Iran has, they've proven they're a rational actor. I mean, Israel has been attacking the crap out of them, assassinating all their proxy leaders,
kind of amazing.
even in Tehran. And I mean, with the exception of the last strike, they've done almost nothing back to Israel.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern with Iran right now is not Israel; it's their own populace is starting to turn against them. I think once that folds, we'll see if Iran goes crazy.
I think this election
Just
has
like
a lot
I
to
think-
do with Iran too.
Just like I think we'll see the same thing with North Korea. I think their populace is slowly waking up. They're pretending, but they're slowly waking up. There's a reason why just this last year he put a death sentence on people who's sneaking the South Korean soap operas across the border.
Yeah, but his populace is not even close. Like, they wake up, they get red pilled. It's probably shell shock.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, in North Korea, in communist China, I mean, those are thoroughly totalitarian societies. I mean, half the people could rise up and they'd all be massacred. It's not like they have the ability to overthrow their government. And
it's true. And not only do they get killed, but so does their downline.
Exactly.
In North Korea. So
entire
they're
family.
killing their child. They're killing future
That's right.
children or grandchildren. It's just terrible. That's a terrifying threat.
Yeah. So I think those regimes are very stable. I mean, Russia obviously isn't, totalitarian like China or North Korea is, and they legitimately have, a lot of affinity for Putin because we've made him like a hero, fighting Biden's war,
super villain,
in Ukraine against Russia and we've killed, 85,000 Russians, and there have been a million Ukrainian casualties. So Ukraine is, losing the war massively, and we keep killing off Ukrainians. Russia's actually been trying to end the war since the day after they invaded.
Yeah.
He's had peace terms. And even today, like I was listening to Colonel McGregor on Daniel Davis Deep Dive, and he's like, well, we don't really know what the Russians, what Putin has in mind to end the war. I'm like, he has peace terms on the table. He always has.
He wants to retain his warm water
exactly
port, and he wants to retain access to it on that major highway.
Yeah.
He's
That's
losing
all he's fought for the whole time.
of his populace too. Like, he's losing so many. They both are. For what?
Well, Russia, I mean, think about how we would be if Mexico was allying with Russia and China on our borders, and they were, U.S., the Russian and Chinese troops on our borders, and they were Russian and Chinese nuclear capable missiles on our borders, and now they're hitting U.S. cities, and Russia is doing almost nothing back. But my fear is, Putin has proven such a rational and reasonable actor. He's, he tried to have peace in Ukraine for 15 years. We wouldn't listen to him. We told him to, piss off, basically. And then he finally decided there was no other options, that he had to invade to keep Russia secure from our NATO imperialist expansion. But if we were to, I feel like, he's getting ready to join China. If Biden defends Taiwan militarily, I have little doubt that Russia will join in the cyber attack and counter space attack that will eviscerate the United States.
Well, one of our
Turn us into
guests
a failed state.
asks Martin, he says, do you think Trump will help Putin? I think Trump will cut off Zelensky.
He will.
And Zelensky will be forced to work with Putin.
Yeah,
right. Because
exactly.
Everything you've said is very, very, it hits really hard, because you're saying we bombed Russia. We are killing all these people. And that is absolutely true.
Indirectly.
We are complicit.
Yes,
our Congress is complicit. Our president is complicit, because we keep feeding this fire. And if we backed off and said, get our stuff out, we don't want to go to World War III. You guys handle it on your own terms. It's just like stepping out on Israel. You guys handle it.
Yeah.
You take care of you. We're over here with our taxpayer dollars going back to our taxpayers.
That's what President Trump has been saying the entire time.
Right.
And Putin would have never invaded Ukraine on Trump's watch, and the reason isn't because he's scared of Trump. It's the opposite. He's not. It's because he doesn't feel threatened by Trump, because Trump doesn't want to go to war with Russia, whereas Biden has made it clear that he does want to go to war with
He's
Russia.
shown that
so,
we're in a war with Russia right
so
now.
Putin views Trump as someone who's reasonable and rational, like he is, who wants peace, who doesn't want to go to war with World War III, and who wants to end this in the war in Ukraine that Russia's been desperately trying to end. But the thing about war is you can start a war, and Russia's certainly guilty of that, but you can't end it unless both sides come to an agreement. And we've been pushing Zelensky. There was a perfect agreement that was so good for Ukraine. It was like a victory. They were popping, champagne corks. This was in early April late March, early April of 2022. It's called the Istanbul Agreement.
Yep.
And Biden torpedoed it. Boris Johnson torpedoed it.
Yeah, Biden sent Johnson to torpedo it. Johnson was
he was to blame for every Ukrainian who's died since then is on Biden's feet.
Well,
so if we backed out, do we look weak? That's what David is saying. And I think we look strong. We look strong. He's saying
we can end wars. That's true strength. It's not starting wars. Anyone can start a war, but to end a war and do so honorably in the interest of the American people, and not just America, the entire world. Because like you said, if we the one place there is a high chance of nuclear war is Ukraine. So Russia came within 50% chance of nuking Ukraine in September of 2022. And it was because of what Biden was doing, in trying to incentivize Ukraine to attack Russia. And they had a successful counteroffensive. The one counteroffensive they had was that was successful was in the Kherson and Kursk regions. And the Kursk region borders Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, okay, let's pull out the non-strategic nuclear weapons. We might have to use a demonstration strike to show them that we're not going to allow this. And we came as close as we've ever come, closer than the Cuban Missile Crisis of nuclear war.
That's scary. So
that would cripple our country, if not cause mass chaos within it, and we would be done. We can't fall, or the world falls.
Their attack would have probably been on Ukraine. What it would have done is it would have drawn the world in. We
would have been paying for the fight back, and we would have had to defend them.
Oh yeah. So I've got two thoughts. Well, one, I got a question. So what percentage of the money sent to Ukraine do you think gets kicked back to Biden personally, and what percent goes to the Democrat Party to act blue? We'll just call it what it is.
Well, it was about 78, 80 million that we found out about. This was trying to think when it was. It was it came out with Sam Bankman-Fried. Was it? I can't remember the
whistleblower.
What the name of
FTX? Yes, FTX.
Yeah. So that was he had this. I don't know what it was. Some kind of mutual fund. It was
kind of a mutual fund for cryptocurrency.
That's right.
But we do know a big chunk right after we sent money to Ukraine went and appeared in his wallet.
Yeah.
Now you can't track.
And Romney and McConnell took some of the money too.
What? Yeah. Oh, color me surprised. I know.
We don't even know how deep the pockets are in Biden.
And Romney, I think, was probably subsequent to getting that campaign contribution. He said, why should we spend $1 on defense if we're not sending all our money and weapons to Ukraine? I mean, he literally said that.
Yeah.
I describe people like Romney as like foreign agents because they're not supporting the U.S. They don't want to keep the U.S. safe. They literally care more about other countries like Ukraine than they do about the safety and security of the United States of America.
I don't think he cares about Ukraine at all. I think he cares about
borderline.
He cares about the laundromat Ukraine has been, just like Joe Biden.
But he's benefiting from it.
Right.
He wouldn't care so much if he wasn't benefiting from it. Look at all these people like the Bushes and even Obama and all of these people that have seen the profit of war. They've seen it. The American people don't feel it. We fund it, but they get theirs. It's like it comes around somehow. And the more technology gets better, the less trackable it's going to be. to actually prove for sure that money we just sent to Ukraine is ending up in Biden's bank account, in Romney's bank account, in Obama's bank account. It's going to be harder and harder with blockchain technology.
The main people that are getting the kickbacks are Zelensky and his Ukrainian cronies.
Absolutely.
Mainly. So I think it was Seymour Hersh, who's a longtime famous liberal journalist, hardcore,
almost not
anti-war.
Anti-war, but not just liberal, but he leans kind of on the socialist side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I mean, but he was anti-war going all the way back to Vietnam.
That's right. He's been consistent. The Democrats have shifted from being the anti-war
that's
party
what
to
liberals
the pro-war
used to
party.
be. Free speech and no wars.
Yeah. When I was in high school, I respected the Democrats for three things. They stood for civil rights, they stood for free speech, and they stood against unnecessary wars. And those were all principles that I've had my whole life. And now it's the Republican Party that champions those principles. The Democrats, they don't have any principles of any worth at all. It's all about the super rich, make a rich, millionaire, billionaire elites that serve the party, the oligarchy, the Democrats that control
the uniparty.
The uniparty, and whatever hurts America is they're going to support that, whether it's DEI or trying to start a nuclear war with Russia or China.
When America's in pain,
illegal immigrants,
they need the government
25
more.
million illegals in
and
America
it keeps
today.
them in power, and then their children in power, and their children. The Bushes is what red pilled me.
Yeah,
I could not vote for George Bush, and the reason I remember telling my brother, I said, I'm not voting for him. If I vote for him, we're going to be in a war in a year. And he's like, what are you talking about? That's crazy.
Was it 2000 or 2004?
It was 2000.
I voted against him too in 2000.
I could not vote for him. And I just kept thinking, we're going to go to war because his dad's war wasn't finished. And
wow,
it was so crazy because now my brother totally agrees with me. And he used to just idolize George W. And he loved Darth Vader. We were powerful. That was Cheney. And he just thought that was so great. But 9/11 was perfectly timed for what they wanted to execute over there in the Middle East. And I didn't understand why you're going to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Why are you going after
Iraq?
Why are you going after Saddam Hussein?
Iraq had nothing to do with it. They were fighting Al Qaeda. They were fighting the terrorists.
Right. And you put Hussein in there. I mean, we've gotten in so much
was a CIA
politics.
asset. Yeah.
Yes. So why are we doing this? And then this is why we should stay out of foreign wars. I don't want to fund Israel as much as I don't want to fund Ukraine.
Yeah.
I want them to stand on their own 2 feet, and I don't want us getting in their way.
We should pull out of NATO. I mean, that's one of
Amen.
Trump's best ideas. And I think it was in 2018 or 19, he was supposedly telling his advisors, his cabinet officials behind the scenes, like, I want out. I want us out of NATO. I don't want to fight a war with Russia.
Well, and if we want to help another country, we don't have to be bound by a treaty to do it.
Exactly. So that's what I'm about to write an article on my Real War Substack at dpyne.substack.com. And it's essentially calling for like a return to strategic autonomy. Because, right now we've kind of subcontracted our the decision to go to nuclear war to small nations in Eastern Europe, whether it's Romania or Lithuania or Estonia, Latvia, Finland. If they get invaded, everyone says, "Oh, we have to go to nuclear war with Russia," and of course, it actually doesn't require us. The Atlantic Charter, Article 5 of the Atlantic Charter of the NATO alliance doesn't require us to do that. But that's the perception, and sometimes perception can take over reality. If we have stupid leaders like Joe Biden or George Bush or Dick Cheney or anyone
the people
like that,
advising any of them,
Mitt Romney,
or our media
could make the decision to go to nuclear war. That could destroy our country over a border dispute like Ukraine that is over like 5 million Ukrainian citizens whose flag flies over
and all
their
these
region,
people,
whether it's Russian or Ukrainian.
All these people making these decisions have bunkers they can go to in that case. I mean, the
A lot
government
too.
has
Yeah.
full-blown bunkers that they could live the rest of their lives and raise children in, and they don't have to send their kids to war. They don't have to live out a nuclear fallout as just a random person or live in a civil war. Like, they have the money and power to remove themselves from that and make these calls from a distance. It's so crummy and it's so disgusting and smarmy. It's almost like it's a swamp over there in DC.
Yeah,
And I think that
it is.
Trump actually showed who those people are
Yeah.
when
I
he
mean,
was first elected.
and I just couldn't stop smiling. I was so happy, when Trump won. I mean, when Philadelphia was declared, Pennsylvania was declared for Trump. I knew that was it.
I
he
cried.
was still 3 electoral
cried. I
votes
couldn't believe
short,
it.
but I was literally practically jumping up and down.
kind of
It was
enjoy
Wisconsin then, and
I
you were
was, yeah. So I was convinced that Trump was going to have his election stolen from him, just like he did last time. And I made 2 predictions. One is if the Democrats stole the election like they did last time, that Trump would only win like 262 votes, and Kamala would win by like 15, and they'd probably steal both houses of Congress as well.
it would come out of those 4 states though, or 4.
Yeah.
It would be so small so
That's
that
right.
she would win, but it would be very
Just,
very
yeah,
close.
they would try to make it look like it was a real election. It wasn't rigged.
Then you were in my head. I had the same thoughts.
Then I said if there wasn't voter fraud, Trump would win 312 electoral votes, 31 states. He would win the popular vote by 4.5 million. And that was exactly right. That wasn't my main prediction because I thought they were going to steal it. But that, we should maybe talk about this. The fact that why didn't they steal it? They had the capability to steal the election. Here's
a bigger question.
I'm worried about it.
What if they put forth their best effort and that's as close as they got?
Well, that's a best case scenario.
That is the wildest thought.
That would be wonderful.
Even if they
that
flattened the football, took pictures of the playbook, did all the things, and still only got that close. That is wild. But I want to.
If the worst case scenario of that would be they've got plans for him before
Exactly.
he's put in.
That's
and
exactly
my biggest
what I'm
fear.
worried about.
I want Trump to stay in Mar-a-Lago.
Yes.
Don't leave the house. Do all your transitioning from there.
Yes.
And make sure you get there safely in the White House.
Yeah.
Bigger yet.
No more rallies.
I don't think they worry about Trump.
He's more of a threat.
A bigger play they could. The biggest play they could play would be to hand over an economy that's in free fall.
That's exactly
because that would destroy
Yeah.
the whole Republican Party as it wrote it
So
down.
that's what I think the plan is. I think the plan is either number one, to assassinate him before he becomes president. Then probably the acting president would be Vance for 4 years, which would be amazing.
That
but,
would be an interesting argument in the courts, wouldn't
the
it?
greatest presidential candidate we've had in my lifetime, essentially.
Wouldn't that be an interesting argument in the courts? Before he gets sworn in, the Democrats would argue in the courts, well, the standing president's vice president should have
Actually,
I think they would drag that
the
into the
American
courts.
people's vote, because Vance is on the ticket, would automatically put him as president. He'd be the president-elect.
Sure.
Be the acting president. Yeah.
After it went through the Supreme Court, I guarantee you that.
Yeah. So it depends on how far advanced the election is. So there's 2 certifications. You guys are well aware of that. December 15th, the Electoral College meets. That's the formal election for the president and the vice president.
And that's in the states that the electors
that's correct.
are.
So they don't meet in one
DC
place. Yeah,
anything.
they meet in their own state capitals and do that. And then January 6th, there's the final certification. So if it went past the final certification, then Trump was assassinated, there would be no question.
Yes.
It wouldn't need to go to Supreme Court. J.D. Vance would become acting president.
Yes. But what if it happened,
I don't
say, late November?
So if it happens before December 15th, before the Electoral College, then the Electoral College could potentially entertain other options.
Not in Utah. I mean, we're sworn by the votes of the party.
Yeah. So presumably they would vote for Vance as the president and then allow him to choose his VP once he was sworn into office. That would then be ratified. The nomination would be confirmed by the Republican Senate. So that would be kind of the ideal situation.
Constitutionally, we don't have a way to not ratify votes, right? I mean, even if with the vote of the public and the ballots and all of that, Congress or Senate can't go in and not ratify these votes, can they?
Well, see, that was the argument.
6th.
I mean, remember with Mike Pence, there was a legitimate legal argument that Mike Pence could delay that certification.
Didn't something similar happen under Nixon over Hawaii? I've heard story about it. I haven't looked in.
Yeah, I mean, he won an overwhelming
70 was it in 72?
72. He won a massive, I don't know,
but
48 states.
he let Hawaii overturn their electors or something. I can't remember. It was, but anyways, I do want to get to the comments, everyone, but first I want to dial this up to 11. So we've got man-made, EMP, nuclear attack. We've got natural, we've got CME. We've also got, there could be, the magnetic pole flip, all that stuff. We've got, obviously it sounds like us and Russia and probably China and India and anyone who has capability has built Skynet. So let's get ready for the T-1000s. I've heard, throw sand at the joints, a whole bunch of stuff, but when
China's
that time comes,
like massive thousands of robots, which potentially could be used.
See,
I have no doubt. And
We're
the
heading
one
there.
that Elon Musk designed
But,
is pretty impressive and terrifying.
It is.
If you
But
put a
it
gun in
is.
his hand,
It
it's
looks just like
terrifying.
iRobot.
It does
Very,
exactly
very
like
similar if you
iRobot.
ever
It
watched
does.
movie.
But turning it up to 11, I'm hearkening back to 2019. What do you think the chances are that adversarial countries or maybe friendly countries are working on maybe bioweapons, maybe selective bioweapons that can kill off maybe people with just one genetic marker?
China's doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's
And that's a
terrifying.
scary thing. I've read 2 books in the last year or 2 years that, they're fiction books, but they're all about that. One's a flu that comes out that targets all groups except for Asians, and then above a certain age, and another one is one that targets the dominant group in the country, and that gets you thinking. COVID was without a doubt it was built as a bioweapon with our help. It's ridiculous. You can't spin off down a conspiracy theory that says Fauci
funded it.
that we did.
Exactly.
That Fauci didn't get in line with the Democrats and say, hey, we're going to make this, we're going to release it, we're going to ruin the end of his presidency, we're going to make sure he doesn't get reelected.
I don't think Fauci planned that. In fact, I don't even think China planned it. I think the release of the COVID virus was accidental. It was a bioweapon, and it was funded. It was created in their level 4 bioweapon.
Which should be illegal in the sense that why would we create bioweapons? I understand we need to study because other countries are doing it too.
Right.
But we had it funded out in China in a lab that was less than secure.
Yeah.
The guy could have walked out with it on him and it would spread like wildfire. And they knew it was capable of that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't under any standard that we have here in the United States for these labs. It's in China in a tiny little town, and it's terrifying.
Wuhan's not tiny.
Yeah,
well,
it's a
I'm
large
saying
city.
Wuhan is
not
huge.
Millions.
There's not spotlights on it that, hey, this is a bioweapons lab funded by the United States, government.
Well, we know it is now.
Now
the
we do.
Republican Congress and President Trump have both said that.
Yeah,
we could have bioweapon labs all over the United States. One just had monkeys.
Well,
escape.
actually, most of our biolabs are foreign. We have 24, I think, in Ukraine alone.
Yes,
that's what I was about to say.
And Putin was telling the world, these are bioweapon labs. This has got dangerous effects on the world, and we want to bring light to it. And I'm not a fan of Putin, but I also can understand he's trying to protect his homeland, and I can understand watching another country come in and help the guy that you're fighting against isn't fair.
Yeah.
So the fact that he has been patient is pretty remarkable.
It is very remarkable. It was I had to literally reimagine my entire view of Russia and Putin based on the fact that he's been so he's had so much strategic forbearance. He withdrew from almost half of Ukraine in April of 2022. Before, at the time that he negotiated the Istanbul Agreement.
Yeah.
So he was acting in good faith. And it was NATO leaders, once again, the US President, Joe Biden,
Germany,
that sabotaged it and insisted that the war continue. That's the real irony.
Who took out their pipeline?
Biden did.
He said he was going to.
Just like Seymour stated.
And he
we
said he
took it
was
out.
going to. He told all of us he was going to.
Maybe it wasn't exactly U.S. personnel that did it, but we trained the people who did.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that. So if Ukrainians did take it out, they went through a couple of weeks of UDT training with some Navy
We
SEALs.
still would have needed
Yeah.
our product, our boats,
I think
or
it was
whatever.
Navy SEAls.
I do believe it was Navy SEALs or I'm sure that our CIA has a UDT team,
But this-
I'm sure they do because Navy SEAls do retire
Tell
and
me-
CIA likes to hire them.
What do we
Sure.
gain as a country by doing that? Because it only hurts our other NATO allies. The
We attack-
only idea is it would put us in the war.
Yeah, we attacked Germany. Germany could have invoked Article 5 and said, hey, the US just attacked us, fellow NATO members. We need to attack them back.
Isn't there
because
a-
that was a clear
True.
attack.
that
That was an
people
act of
were-
war committed against our own ally, Germany.
Aren't they trying to build a southern pipeline that comes up through Turkey into Western Europe and
Biden's trying to build a
also
train.
Germany gave up on that. They built a whole bunch of solar farms. Doesn't that fix it? And windmills. I mean, that fixed the world,
Yeah,
right?
Germany got rid of their nuclear reactors after Fukushima.
They sure did. They sure did. The Germans sure do make a lot of strategically unintelligent decisions all the time.
Yeah. Well, Eisenhower indoctrinated them to become self-loathing pacifists, and
Yeah.
that has continued. I mean,
Mhm.
I've been to Germany, and there's not a lot of German flags out there. I mean,
Mm-mm.
told Germans I love Germany, and they looked at me like, okay. They kind of smiled, but it was like,
My husband was
I don't
born
think
there,
they love their own country.
and we have family
You know?
there, and they are shocked to see all these American flags every time they come over.
Right.
And I'm just like, don't you guys? I never have seen a German
Yeah.
flag
We
flying other than
indoctrinated
at a
them
train
to
station.
hate their own country, and many still do.
See,
Generations later.
Oh, Oktoberfest! I saw a bunch because
Yeah.
Germany was in the soccer.
We probably fly more German flags here for
Oh, yeah.
Oktoberfest than
easy.
than they
Easy.
do.
Just go to
It was World Cup,
any of the
Okay.
little
and Germany was hosting.
any of the
Okay.
little cities called
Yeah.
Germantown in the Midwest, and there's a lot of German. Well,
Didn't it
Yeah.
affect
I'm
other
a German
countries
American.
too?
I'm 43% German.
there
so-
might be modern German flags and the old ancient German flags, maybe even Teutonic flags. There's
Yeah.
that one little window.
Yeah,
won't see
I actually have
many.
an Imperial German naval ensign on my upstairs office.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because I'm a big fan of Imperial Germany.
But
I
I
despise Nazi Germany, but I
Yeah.
love the German
Well,
Empire.
Didn't
mean-
it affect more than Germany though with that pipeline? Wasn't there other European countries
Oh,
that
yeah.
were put out?
yeah, but
it's
Germany was
mainly
the
Germany.
one that had turned their back on sensible energy policy they built solar panels in a place that gets really cold in the winter. The end is super cloudy and has lots of big trees, and they built solar farms.
And why didn't we
Yeah.
provide their energy for them? Because we couldn't drill in our own
we
backyard
did.
under
So that's
Biden.
what happened after
Yes.
Biden blew it up. Then Blinken was like, "Oh, this is a tremendous." He's like, old smiles. This is a
We were the
tremendous opportunity
backstop.
for the U.S.
So
to like
there's another
like,
reason to do it.
get Russia, or get Germany not being dependent on Russian energy anymore, and we're gonna sell them, liquid natural gas at like 50 times more than it costs to buy the Russians. And it's not surprisingly, the German economy went into recession.
Yep.
Oh, they're suffering over there.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing it bad, but they've got it really bad.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
all our
It's all their own fault.
Well,
in our
all their
country-
decisions
I-
to deplete their
Yeah.
deplete their populace's ability to have clean and safe energy that's in natural gas and everything else, to give them an energy source that doesn't function in their country at the time they need it the most. It's their own fault.
Well, natural gas is clean, and that was
100%.
their whole concept behind getting rid of their nuclear reactors was to go to natural gas.
To go to
Both-
natural
both are
gas
clean.
and solar and wind.
Right.
They even say by itself, the natural gas that they were bringing in was barely enough to meet their demands in the winter because their solar and their wind stopped working.
Yeah.
Most of the time,
like
windmills
Texas.
don't work when it's frozen.
That's
But-
worldwide,
Common
folks.
sense, right?
And that's
Yeah,
why
but
it
I
doesn't
wanna-
make sense.
I want to go
Yeah.
back to this scary thing because I see it like this. Okay, CME hopefully we have scientists who can map the sun and figure out what's going on there. If there's a pulsar somewhere nearby that's going to vomit
They do. Yeah, they're really good at that.
And
Solar weather
and
scientists.
obviously we can have industrialists and scientists build weapons that can eliminate the threat from nuclear and all that. We just got to get ahead of it, have the willpower to do it.
Missile defenses, right?
But the bio one is what scares me, because that can come in any tract into your body. It could be undetectable, and it could attack you, and they could just do long term and say, let's make it so it makes them all sterile.
Yeah, a direct target.
You know,
on
they
the
don't
DNA
have to
of
kill
every
you.
person.
Or they can say, you know what, we'll put a spike protein into you and it's going to give you heart problems. I mean, they could do however they wanted to go with this.
Yeah,
Democrats never let a crisis go to waste either.
Yeah, Deng Xiaoping, actually authorized, that exact program in 1990, and China's been working on it ever since. The last, 34 years.
I'm so glad we don't let their scientists into our major medical colleges. And I mean,
We train their scientists.
Yeah, that's right.
That I would have if they were
They're nuclear scientists at Livermore labs and all kinds of
They're right at MIT
where we
right
build
now.
our nukes.
Harvard.
They have lots of Chinese scientists and agents there.
And I'm certainly glad that we don't have scientists that lead our science education in the nation who committed atrocities during the AIDS crisis, going over there and setting up bio hotspots. I'm thankful that we're not making any of those moves. And
they also can't tell you what a woman is either.
Well,
they're way above that, and they're the experts.
Like if you're, what's her name? Is it Justice Jackson? What's her?
Oh, the newest one.
Yeah,
Sheila
Ketanji
Jackson.
Yes.
Ketanji Jackson said that she's not a biologist, so she can't answer the question of what a woman is.
I think that, along with the zillion other things that's gone on, is what was on the back of people's minds. And I love trans people. I love all people. So don't come at me. But I think if you're an adult, you go, you do whatever you want. That's the beauty of this country. And I'll call you whatever you ask me to. I don't want to disrespect anyone. But I don't think you should do it to kids. And I think kids should be able to grow up and decide for themselves like you do. But at the same time, they took the people of this country that go to work and live paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, and now they're going in debt on credit card debt because they're feeding their family. To go to the grocery store, they have to use their credit card. That was what is in everyone's mind at this election.
Yeah, they've destroyed the economy. Their woke liberal policies, have destroyed womanhood.
Yep.
Of all things, the very key to our civilization is women, mothers and wives and daughters and sisters.
Birthing people.
It's so insulting. And to have,
and then they're taking Woman of the Year the second they transition, and they're taking over our sports.
Right.
We just found out that Olympic boxer that the press was so quick to tell you, no, that's just a woman born with both genes. No, that woman has testicles. And they just discovered it. And you just watched on live television for the Olympics. Our children watched a man beat the hell out of a woman.
It's
and
so
then got a big medal for it. And he's so brave.
Even the liberals are, waking up to that. A lot of liberal commentators have been like, well, maybe it's because we surrendered the party to the far left and Biden is governed to the far left. Instead of trying to be unifier, he's been super divisive with all these woke liberal policies.
The Democrats,
it just finally dawned on them. And I think that they, after 2020, I think they just thought, hey, we can steal elections whenever we want. They can't get kicked us out of power. We can use a Smartmatic algorithm.
We've got shock troops at our command.
We've got bureaucrats.
We can control the army. Yeah. We can, if we want to use the military against Trump when he Trump.
Well, the army's gotten a lot smaller, but I'd say keep going. I would love to see an army that's just feminized and.
But this is the end of the day. These activities that they have done, the Democrats, and there were a few that I know that decided to hold their nose and vote for Trump. That is why the party they loved left them. And most of them are older, like our age, and they're saying, no, I used to be the party against war. We used to be the free speech party.
Yeah.
We were standing up against the man, and we believed in absolutism when it comes to free speech and no wars. And we had a platform that was easy to discriminate from any other platform. God was still in their platform.
Yeah.
And now here these liberals and their Gen Xers who are going, okay, I'm going to show up today.
Now, if you say
Because-
Jesus is Lord, sorry to interrupt you. What were you saying?
No, that's what they showed up for. They
Yeah.
showed up to bring back a semblance of what their party used to look like, because the Republican Party has turned into that now.
Well,
Yeah.
Society has changed.
the Republicans through the late 90s and early 2000s drove the critical thinking liberals, the ones that were traditionally your stronger independents, into the Democrat Party. And now the Democrats have drove them into the Republican
Yeah,
Party.
the neocons are going back to the Democrats where they first started.
Where they started,
Bill
where-
Kristol, you know.
Yeah.
Let's not call
David
them
Frum.
neocons anymore. Let's call them what they are, Trotskyists.
Yeah.
And
Jeff
because that's
Flake.
where they come out. They come out of people who in college who
Liz Cheney.
studied
It's true.
Trotsky.
Yeah.
You know, Bill
That's right.
Kristol studied
Yeah.
Trotsky. That was one of his personal heroes.
Yeah,
He
Leninists.
believed in him. Yes.
Oh, you guys know how bad Trump hates women. He just appointed one as his chief or his
Yeah.
chief deputy.
Democrat. No Democrats ever done that.
No president has ever done that.
Right.
What
Right? Isn't this the first female?
His very first appointment, who's considered the most powerful person in the entire
The
cabinet.
person who runs
She's
the
not
house.
in the cabinet, but she's kind of over the cabinet.
right. It's the
So it's
his
almost like
chief deputy, or what is this?
the chief of staff.
Chief
the
of
White
staff.
House
The
chief of
person
staff.
who
First
runs the
female
house.
chief of staff appointed
Runs
by
the
Donald
cabinet.
Trump
Yeah.
this week.
I got a question. What if we lean into it? So is it too late to lean into what the Democrats want and beat them at their own game and elect Caitlyn Jenner as the first female president? Get a trans.
She'd never run.
I don't know. I'll bet we could. I
She
bet
already
we
got
could.
Woman of the Year.
I don't
She's
support
already winning.
I think. Look, Woman of the Year.
I respect him, but I don't
No,
support
but
him.
I'm telling you to put it on the wall that the first female president was a Republican trans, I think would
No,
that
'cause then
would
we're
drive a
playing in
big
clown
stake in
world.
that vampire.
Yeah.
And we have to be done with clown world. We have to
Right.
be done with being clowns on the national stage. I know people in Germany, people in UK especially, were terrified as much as I was regarding how this election was going to end up,
Mhm.
because they say we're all in trouble. Whatever
Yeah.
the United States does will reflect on us, and they reflect on us as well. But
Yeah.
it reflects on them, and they're done. They're so sick of immigration over there.
Yeah.
They're not safe.
And it was
Their
our war.
sexual assaults have gone up like crazy.
It was our wars that caused the mass migration in Europe, because we wasted
Obama.
$7 trillion with the Bush's wars, Obama's wars in Afghanistan,
Yep.
Iraq, Libya, Syria.
Syria.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. And now, I mean, there's girls that the sexual assault has gone up ridiculously in those countries in Europe.
Yeah.
And they're considered absolute racists if they stand up. And the ones who are talking like Trump, saying, no, they don't belong here. And if they are here, they're not committing crimes because they want to be here, and they're learning the language, and they're working in society, and they're not burdens on our system. These type of things now, you're getting people brave to speak up in UK, in Germany, in Switzerland, or whatever country's gotten bombarded with SA. And so you get all this happening. If America looks like clown show, which we've been for the last 4 years, we've been trotting out Weekend at Bernie's every single week around the country and around the world.
Right.
And we look ridiculous. Look at all these wars happening around the world that we're complicit in.
Yeah.
And we're
we
giving
are.
them our best military, and all these taxpayers are funding a war. And it's like, how often is the media in Ukraine showing us on the ground footage of what's going on in Ukraine?
Almost never.
Yeah, they're over in Gaza
Because
though.
independent media isn't allowed in Ukraine. If they were there, they might get assassinated.
Well, the thing is
Well, they
they're
have an agenda
driving.
to
Ukrainians.
drive.
What's the narrative they're driving of Ukraine? That Ukraine is standing a
they're
chance,
winning. Yeah.
or even holding them still,
Sure.
and everyone believes that
Not
Ukraine.
anymore.
Well, that's true, but Ukraine is getting slaughtered. They have
They are,
lost a
yeah.
generation. Right now, Ukrainian recruiters are walking the streets and kidnapping people with Down syndrome and throwing them at the front lines.
Insane. And we're funding this, people.
Yeah, it's evil. I
It
mean,
is.
anyone who claims to profess love and support for the Ukrainian people that are supporting this horrible war, that could have ended. It never could have happened at all. All Putin was asking for is a written guarantee from Biden that Ukraine would never join NATO.
Ukraine won't join NATO. He wanted to keep his warm water port off the Crimea, and he wanted the highway open to for commerce. Really, that's what he wanted. He wanted access to commerce.
Yeah. Well, Putin still talks about how mad he was that that Biden authorized the coup against Yanukovych, who was Ukraine's democratically elected president.
Yep.
And he bragged about that too.
Yeah.
people.
So Putin wanted Ukraine to have all its territory, but he wanted to remain a neutral buffer state. As long as it was a neutral buffer state that was not aligned with the West or NATO, he was happy to let it have all its territory. But once he told Bush straight up, he told President Bush once or twice that if you expand NATO into Ukraine, I'm going to take back the Donbass and Crimea.
Yep.
And he was true to his word.
Well, he has to.
Yeah.
He absolutely has to. And we're not justifying Putin. Putin, good guy, bad guy, whatever. It's just realpolitik. He had to. He had to, just
He
like
had to do what was right for Russia.
Just like
for his
he
own
couldn't
country.
have
Absolutely.
Chechnya
Yeah.
fall to the UN because Chechnya is notoriously suicide bombing. And, he couldn't. He had to hold on to Georgia for the same reason, for access to the, not militaristic, yes, but mostly the economic access. He has to. He has to have that.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing that I've learned about Georgia and Ukraine is that Georgia actually attacked the Russian separatist territories in Abkhazia and North Ossetia. Before, that's what triggered the war with Russia. And Russia,
Yeah, they had the Georgian.
Russia didn't go beyond. They didn't storm Tbilisi. They didn't storm the capital. They didn't try to take over all of Georgia. They control about 20% of Georgia. Now they control about 20% of Ukraine.
A buffer zone.
Buffer zone. Exactly. And we would do the same thing, I wrote an article back.
I would argue we'd go a little further. I do remember there's a whole marching through Mexico City that Robert E. Lee was the head engineer over. Yes, I do recall.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, I wrote an article in the National Interest back in July of 2022, and it was entitled "The U.S. needs to have more strategic empathy for Russia," meaning that if we were in their same situation and we had a hostile alliance that expanded from Central America to Mexico or even into Canada, for that matter, that was having joint military exercises with Russian and Chinese troops, with 1,000 Russian and Chinese troops in their territory.
Never put up with that.
Yeah, with nuclear capable missiles or even anti-tank missiles, by the thousands, and training their troops to one day fight the U.S.
And Iran was
we would
sending
preempt
them,
that.
and
We
they'll
would
say
completely preempt that.
China and Iran are sending them tanks and jets and missiles and all of that. And it's like, excuse me, this is a big deal. This thing with Russia can't end fast enough. And if it takes Trump going in there and saying, hey, you two sit down because your money's getting cut off and we won't put him in NATO.
Putin Putin, as soon as he won, the day of, put out the message, I want to come to the negotiation table. And Hamas, the day after, put out the message, we want to end this war. And
after the election,
China put out the message. Remember when Biden first got in, they went to Alaska and had that summit, and the Chinese ambassador said, you come here arguing from a position of weakness. Don't make demands on us.
Right.
China made a statement to the U.S. saying, we want to work with you in peace and harmony, please, because it's a different application when you have someone who actually cares about the nation, who isn't willing to sacrifice the nation for their own pocketbook, that is what we've had in Biden. That's what we've had in the Democrat Party. And I want to go to, I don't know how the Canadian elections are going. I think they happen here next month. Is that correct? or
I don't-
later
I
this
haven't
month.
kept track.
Who can
I'm
keep
not a-
track
not
of
an
their
expert
elections? You
on
never
Canadian
know.
Politics,
But-
unfortunately.
Harkening back to how would we react if we had an enemy flirting with an enemy on our northern border? I mean, Fidel Castro's son is still in charge, and if
Trudeau.
Yeah.
He,
So Canada is actually they've trained Chinese PLA troops in
Yes.
winter warfare.
hosted him,
We found that out in 2022.
yes, and there's probably a pretty good chance of those balloons that flew over had access into our country through Canada.
without a
Right.
doubt.
They
They're probably
did.
launched
And-
from
and they-
Canada.
And they were built with components built by companies like from the one that Senator Kelly helps to manage, who was rumored to be one of Kamala Harris's top
Mhm.
finalists for the VP job, and he's heavily involved in cooperating with China. Just as you mentioned, it's not just Biden. Biden's obviously the biggest sellout in U.S. history in terms of a president, but
Didn't Clinton also sell secrets to
He did.
China?
he did, but it wasn't. He didn't it wasn't a private business. It was actually public actions where he authorized. It was L'Oreal and one other company that sold GPS technology to make
So
their
he did
nuclear
it in front of your face.
weapons more accurate, so they could more efficiently kill millions of Americans. And that was the Republican Congress at the time was considering articles of impeachment for Chinagate against Bill Clinton, and they decided they decided to pull it and pursue the Lewinsky articles instead. I wish that
Which was stupid.
I wish they had impeached him on
the
China
Lewinsky
Gate
We
articles-
instead.
might not have had a Hillary
They
Clinton.
only
Yeah.
strengthened the Democrat Party's base,
Right.
because the
True.
Democrat Party said this isn't important to us. Why are you wasting our time?
Yeah,
A lot like some of the impeachments emboldened the Republican base.
sure.
But had they gone after China on maybe strategically making life more dangerous, but who knows? The Democrats back then, I mean, they were a little more backbone than they are now, but
Yeah.
it would be a rough test to see just how far. But we do need to go to some comments because they've been lingering for a minute. You go okay with that?
Absolutely.
All right. So we got Paul Seafried on here, and he's a friend of mine. It's Paul, for a backstory on him, Paul, type in there what your business partner's name was. I forgot her name, but he built nuclear bunkers for a living for quite a while.
So
Wow.
he knows.
Yeah,
He
he
knows where
knows
the
stuff.
safe places are.
So he says,
I didn't know people could survive after building those.
yeah, he says EMP and CME are different. Yes, they are. They're totally different,
My
but
mom.
the effects are awful close in certain circumstances, from what I understand. Am I correct?
Yeah, so he's absolutely right. So super EMP effects and emissions are actually more damaging. They can potentially take down Air Force One. They could potentially take down our nuclear missiles in the air. Whereas the effects from a CME, we know that super EMP could take out like cars and stuff. That built before 1980s that have electronics. But there's a kind of an assumption that a CME wouldn't take out, for example, computers, laptop computers, desktop computers, TVs. It would be more large objects, more, like cars or above type of thing. Obviously, power,
Like a chip that's in the car.
transformers. We aren't sure. It's more of a debate, and I would think that it would be actually almost as damaging as super EMP.
Well, I saw the
from an attack.
documentary, War of the Worlds, where it's not a documentary, but where it fried the chips in cars, except
Yeah.
for over a certain age. And that's kind of where I get my idea of an EMP, is that anything that's old would be okay,
Right.
but anything new. But I thought that would be computers and laptops and TVs and things like that. No?
Yeah. So Bob McEntee is our subject matter expert.
I had no idea.
As the director of the EMP task force here in Utah, and he's stated that anything above like an iPad, he doesn't think an iPad would be affected. So the iPads would still work, the cell phones would still work, but they wouldn't have an internet connection.
Satellites would still work,
So-
or no?
No. If there's a super EMP, it's going to fry the satellites in orbit that aren't hardened against EMP effects. So most of our satellites would be taken out if
That's
there
what I
was
thought.
even one super EMP
Which
detonation
means
in
you
space.
can have a technological device
Yeah,
that works and didn't get fried, but there's nothing to connect it to.
exactly.
There's no Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's it. If there's a cyber attack, it's going to be the same thing. So with the difference between a super EMP attack and a cyber attack, a massive nationwide cyber attack, would be that super EMP would actually fry the electronics in the car, so you could have gas, but if it wouldn't run. Whereas cyber attack would take out the gas pumps. He would take down the gas pumps. And so as long as the denial of service attack or whatever type of cyber attack it was ongoing, then none of the electronic systems would work. But if they turn it off, you could restore all of them could potentially still work again.
I keep thinking, like, how far would that, because like this, they did the math on COVID, the 3 years of Democrat lunacy or Democrat like Republican lunacy. And they estimate that set us back 10 years.
What set us back 10 years?
The COVID, just the response that the different
I can see that
different
with
governments
schools.
did, but it set us back 10 years economically, which is where they done the measure. Economically, it set us back 10 years. It took back 10 years of growth that we had made as just citizens.
Wow.
And then I wonder how far, and also money wise, it set us back by the inflation, stole that much wealth that was spread throughout the
recession, right?
The populace. But I wonder how, like, you think of an EMP or a CME, say it just took out cars that started in, say, even if we just went OBD2, which starts in 89, OBD1 starts in 85. Say that survives just because it's bigger and chunkier and doesn't have a lot of small electronics in it. How far would that set us back? I mean, just the finer electronics that aren't hardened. I mean, that set us back a long ways.
That's assuming the world doesn't go crazy after.
Cities
civil war will happen. Right?
We wouldn't be able to. You couldn't do a civil war. Well, it'd just be urban cannibal restaurants, and then people out in the country wearing stuff woven out of weaves.
It'd be the Walking Dead without the cannibals or without the zombies.
Clothes in your closet. I mean, you've got clothing from your closet.
But that's how it would turn. I mean, I think about this house. How would this house fare without the AC in the summer? It'd be a miserable nightmare. And in the winter, forget about it.
I'm just having solar panels and a Tesla Powerwall installed at my house like later this month. So I'm finally taking the actions that I've been needing to try to get ready, because I do think that the threat of a Chinese cyber attack on the U.S. in particular is pretty high, because there's two schools of thoughts. One is that thinking that China fears Trump. They want to blockade Taiwan before Trump takes office because they think he might be more likely to defend Taiwan. The other school of thought that I'm hoping is correct is that China knows that Trump won't defend Taiwan because he's so dedicated to the American people and our national survival that he'll cut a deal with China over Taiwan that is some kind of reunification, maybe what I proposed, the Confederation.
We mine our own chips material and worry about software and things like that and cut Taiwan off?
They'll still sell it to us.
He might
if we make a deal.
They might be figuring in that in his drive to bolster the American economy that, same with Biden's had the same drive to get chip building over here. It's just Trump didn't want to rob us blind and give it to his best friends to do it. In the drive to do that, if we started building our own chips here, that would weaken the strategic importance globally that Taiwan holds. And I think at that point, Taiwan would probably go to China with their arms
Wouldn't they be massacring a large amount of people? Because there's the Taiwan populace that does not want to be a part of China.
I think Taiwan would go to China with their arms open. If they became strategically less important,
that would require us making them less important, and no one wants to mine these things in their backyard.
It wouldn't require us making them less important. It would require us functioning like a state who has its own sovereign interests. We wouldn't have to make Taiwan less important. we just wouldn't be. The world right now is reliant on Taiwan for most of its isn't it? We make the best chips here, the grade A's. Taiwan makes lower level grade A's and all the grade B's, and China makes the grade C's. That's my understanding.
Well, I mean, Taiwan makes 90% of the advanced microchips in the world,
And
and 60% of the less advanced ones.
Which
So
makes
we
them
can,
important to the world.
yeah, so we can produce our own less advanced chips that, but they're not going to power the latest generation of iPhones and computers and cars.
Well, don't we make the most
Or
advanced
weapons, for
chips
that
are
matter.
made over here though?
Not anymore.
I've been under the understanding that they're still made over here. The most advanced ones are still made here because we're the ones that invents them every time, and then
They still
give
the
them to
technology.
Taiwan.
You can flash the brains into a chip. You can build a chip over there, ship them here for the countries that need them or for the products that are needed, and then once they get here, they get the information or the properties that are in it that are protected. They get flashed into that chip. They give it the brains.
Yeah, I recognize that. No,
but the chip is built in Taiwan.
No, my understanding is that the best chips are still built here. They're built in our research labs and in our the top
case,
of the
but
line.
we can't produce them in quantity.
And yes, so we make the top grade A's, and then Taiwan makes the grade B's, which is what's in your iPhones and in your all your electronics. And China makes the stuff that's in your toaster.
China makes your toaster.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, China makes everything.
And China does it
makes the iPhone.
because they rush in rudimentarily to make the stuff. But China doesn't make the chips in the iPhone. China puts them all together.
Right. And that's because, and a lot of times this is what people don't realize. And when they will steal intellectual properties. And so companies that are smart do produce, or they do have a way to put the intellectual properties into the chip after it's been manufactured, because that is such a threat that they'll steal it or reverse engineer it.
So Mallory, Paul's daughter, says she would like to get you and him together to have lunch sometime, because he talks about, we've had him on the show and he talks about it, and he's up to date on all that stuff. And then she is angry at Mike Lee for supporting cops, for supporting Cox.
Mike Lee is one of the best.
Yeah. We're not going to
best politicians in the United States.
Lee's
and
awesome.
I say this because the world knows his name.
Yep.
Because he is nothing but Constitution in his policy planning in DC. And he comes home. He tries to do most of his stuff from home because he doesn't like the DC swamp. But he is an ally in DC, and he'd be an awesome Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, and an even better attorney general. That's my hope. You know what? I've looked at.
We'd have to replace him though. That's my fear. Who do we replace him with?
I don't know.
John Curtis.
How about
Mike
Trent
Lee.
Staggs?
Thank you. Yes. Okay. You got me on board.
He would be the best.
Okay.
He'd be a Mike Lee replacement in full. Constitutional, anti-Ukraine war, America first all the way.
Yeah.
That's what we, if Mike Lee is
policy.
If Mike Lee is appointed as Attorney General, as I hope and pray to, clean out the FBI. Yeah. So he was been rumored as one of the top picks for Attorney General.
Would be
right now
huge.
Yeah. Clean out the Department of Justice, clean out the FBI. We could appoint, Trump could appoint like Jim Jordan or Matt Gaetz or someone like that as FBI director.
He could potentially lose seats.
Yeah, no, you can't do that, because I wanted to talk about the fact that the House has not been called yet.
I know.
We've won 216 seats so far. We need 218. There's actually probably a 1/3 chance that the Democrats will still control of the House
with
218 seats.
How about I do
a
crazy notion, and we don't elect politicians for these offices? We elect people who work in a step lower position in the government. We find one in there that's good, that knows the job, and we bring them into it, and we quit just withholding power as a benefit to be given out to political, it'd be nice. I know it's a dream. It's a dream to not, because I think that's still building a swamp. If it's just a political appointee at every turn, it's still building a swamp. To put a guy who was a congressman in charge of the CIA is at best only slightly abusive to our population. And at worst, it's majorly abusive. And that's because we keep putting political appointees in there who are willing to make political shortcuts. Let's find a general to be in charge of it, or an admiral, someone who shows some character.
How about General Flynn?
Sure. I mean, I would push him into the NSA because
It's true. But the left hates him and all the drama before, but Trump only has few people he can trust.
Yeah.
And I think Flynn proved to be somebody that cares about the country.
Yeah. He didn't do anything wrong. And that was a complete, it was a setup. Like, he did exactly the same thing that Biden did before when he was president-elect. He conducted diplomacy.
As a matter of fact,
the same thing.
As a matter of fact, the FBI lawyer that lied on the affidavit, David, got punished. I mean, he couldn't act as a lawyer for
Trump
2
wants
months.
to reform FISA courts too, because those courts put up with these lies and don't know when they're being lied to. That's a problem. And when the FBI can get away with it and then just ask forgiveness instead of actually get any trouble, we have a problem. And now that's what our House has been working on with those FISA votes, was to try to improve and reform FISA. How far did they go?
That one I don't like, but
how far they need to go? Absolute.
I don't like the idea of we're going to keep the abuse of you in so we can catch that bad guy. I don't like that.
I agree.
But
I think FISA
but let's get back to these comments. So Paul says, and this is an argument against you, he says combat targeting data can be reinstated in less than a minute on Russian and US ICBMs.
That's not the information that I have from some of the top nuclear experts in the country. I mean, it's possibly he's right, but I'm well read.
You're pretty much going off of information you've gotten. So maybe you guys can educate each other. Mallory says, I'm pretty sure I've seen footage of Russian and Chinese troops in Mexico.
They were coming over the border.
You watch Michael Yon, we have been invaded. The Visigoths have, they're in Rome. So I wonder how many Chinese military bases. Remember in New Mexico when it was like about 2014, 2015, when they found that Al-Qaeda base in New Mexico because they were abusing some of their children, and the police ended up coming there and they arrested. There was like a group of 10 people, but they were foreign Al-Qaeda operatives that had a base in New Mexico. And that makes me think, how many Chinese bases are in different parts of the way rural or wilderness in the U.S.?
We have 100,000 PLA troops in the U.S. right now. It's the equivalent of two PLA group armies. So those are corps-sized units with about 3 Army division equivalents.
What does PLA stand for?
People's Liberation Army.
So I mean, they're the Visigoths are in Rome.
Yeah, 10% of the Russian or the Chinese Army's active duty troops are likely here in the U.S. already. So,
and that's
they
interesting.
Came across the U.S. border, we saw them clustered together in the U.S. border
over the last 4.5 years.
Yes.
You've heard of Michael Yon, right?
Yep.
His reporting on the Darien Gap is some of the craziest I've ever read. How China has compounds built through it, and they have a comfortable trip while all the other masses are just dying in the jungle.
Yeah, they've had troops in Panama for 25 years.
So
I want to add something about the House seats. Right now, looks like 3 counties, 2 and Alaska are still being counted. And I think it's New Mexico, Arizona and California. And they're leaning red in their count, and Alaska as well is still not turned in.
So my worry is that California. So I've been studying election returns and results and polling, and I've had a really good record in terms of predictions, electoral predictions. But what I've seen is, from 2010 on, California, especially, they're the last ones to declare the races. Not just because they're in the Pacific, but because they're, they deliberately steal races.
Schizophrenic.
So there's 10 races in California, more or less at the end of the election that take days to decide. Every single time the Democrats win 90% of the races that are too close to call. I mean, like mathematically, you would assume it'd be roughly half and half, 5-5,
Yeah,
4-6.
especially with this
It's
color
always-
pattern happening in California.
Yeah, it's always 9-10. There's I think there's 8 California races left. And I predicting right now 6 to 8 of the 6 or probably 7 of them will go blue, even if the Republicans are currently ahead.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm worried that there is a legitimate chance that Democrats will pull off a 218 seat win.
See, with 7,
1
they
seat
can't.
majority in the
Right.
House.
So yeah, with 7, they're still under the Republicans. 216, they're at 215, and then Alaska, I would assume, is going to run red because
Yeah, Alaska will
that
go
one
red.
is still up.
It's
The
a red.
whole state
It's a red state.
is still leaning.
Yeah.
And then Arizona. What's amazing
Arizona's going to get stolen.
is these pockets of blue in these vast states of all red. It's crazy. I mean, California is just along the coast and all around the West Coast. But when you go inland more, it's all red. And yet, but the populations that are there are so massive, it's enough to take the entire state, which is crazy. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's leaving out the farmers. It's leaving out all the folks that you actually need. And then you get the whole bottom half, like Nevada's cut in half. So as far
Yeah.
as the support for the House, anyway, I'm
Yeah,
just
so-
looking at the House seats right
So
now.
almost all the California House seats are going to go blue. The Arizona seat's going to go blue. The Washington seat's going to go blue.
How many seats in Alaska?
The Alaska, there's only 1, and that's going to go red. So we'll win at least 2 of the 15 that are remaining.
It's
But
gonna-
that,
our
that'll
bid
get
is
us-
going to only be 1 over, 2 over, but that's why we need the Senate, folks.
yeah, so it'll get us
And
to
we have
217. We do have a chance. I mean, we have a realistic chance to get to 221, but we're going to have to run the gauntlet and not have the Democrats steal elections in California. And I really think they're gonna.
And we're going to get 2030 when they do the census.
Yeah.
And it's all their plan is going to come to fruition because they're not counting registered voters and citizens, they're counting the populace. So even all these illegal undocumented immigrants that have come across all over the county, they've been spread out just so that they'll get more representative seats.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
Congress is going to grow, and this is the plan. And yet a lot of us didn't realize this was the plan until it's already millions and millions undocumented that we don't even know where they are.
Yeah. And I think the short-term plan is exactly what Jared said, and is that they want Trump to be president and they want Republicans to control both houses of Congress by the narrowest of margins so they get the full blame when they crash our economy. They're going to figure out a way to crash the stock market.
They're
the
geniuses.
banks.
Back to the comments. Paul says, Paul is criticizing us. He says, we don't quite get it on Ukraine and Georgia. Putin's an anti-war good guy, just like his invasion of Georgia. Europe does not share our assessment of Putin's wonderfulness. I think you read a lot into what we said. What was it was Clinton's Secretary of State, or I believe, or second, the right under, that was in charge of how we went over and assimilated Eastern Europe back into Europe. And I remember
Madeleine Albright.
No, it was a guy. What's his
The
name?
Secretary of State.
Well, it wasn't the secretary. He was
Yeah,
like
'cause
under,
Clinton
but he
the
was
Secretary
he
of
was-
State.
he was the person who was put. No, we're talking
Stroke
Bill.
Talbot was the deputy.
But
Secretary
he
of
was
State.
put in charge of absorbing Eastern Europe back in. I read his book, and he wrote about this. I read it years ago, and he resigned because of it, because of the way we designed.
Probably Bill Perry. Well, Bill Perry was Secretary of Defense, and he almost resigned over NATO expansion.
Yes.
that-
Well, Bill Perry did, but no, this guy was, but he was over how we absorbed former bloc countries into Europe. But he resigned because he saw that they were specifically doing different operations in Russia. And he said, you guys are setting up a future enemy for the military industrial complex. And he resigned over it. because they went in there and we set them up and set up economics there, but we went into Russia and we gave out little chits that were that remind me of what the U.S. government did after the Revolutionary War with Hamilton and all that. But it was they gave out these tokens and we kind of held control over their economy. And then in the end, the poor people sold all their tokens to the mafia and the KGB guys. And then the KGB guys had all the tokens and said, okay, now turn the tokens in for the industry. And they got all the industry. And he resigned over it. And this was in, it must have been 93, 92 when they did this. And I remember reading that guy's book. I was still in the military when I read it. And it's just a wild story. But
thank you.
But no, it's just going to, he thinks we're saying Putin's a good guy.
No, we prefaced it by saying he's not a good guy.
Putin's a brutal dictator, but he doesn't want war.
People tend to fall out of windows around him.
What Putin is a person that's acting in the strategic interest of his power.
Motherland.
He's
Russia.
a patriot. He's a nationalist.
Yes.
And he's not a communist. There's still idiot Republican neocons in Congress that
he wants to build the USSR.
We have to stop communism in Russia. I'm like, hello, were you sleeping?
Yeah.
How old were you when the Soviet Union fell in 1991? It's ridiculous. And, I've always been someone who's said that, Russia's the main threat. Russia's going to destroy us. I was a latecomer to China being the greater threat.
Too. Remember when he was running for president against Obama, and Obama's like, "Hey, 80s called. They want their foreign policy back." Oh, that didn't age well.
Yeah. No, he was right in the sense that Russia is far more powerful than most people realize. Militarily, they have up to 16,000 nuclear weapons, according to Ukraine.
That's the scary
which
part.
is, 8 times more than we have, essentially, in terms of operational nuclear weapons, strategic nuclear weapons in particular. So, they have the capability, but, threat is measured in terms of intention and capability. And what I didn't know about Putin that I learned after he pulled those troops out of Ukraine, out of northern Ukraine, 3 different oblasts, including the Kyiv region, is that he doesn't have a desire to go to war with NATO. He doesn't have a desire to annex all this territory. If Putin had wanted to annex all of Ukraine, he could have done so in 2022. He could have done it in 2014. All he had to do was invade with an army of at least 500,000 troops.
I also argue he doesn't have the capability to hold it long term.
I think he does.
That'd be super costly to take it and hold it long term and put Poland as your new border. I think that would be very expensive for Russia at this time.
Who would be their threat? Because back then, without the United States, Ukraine wasn't their threat.
Well, right now,
yeah, exactly.
Right now, what was it? End of last year, what book was it? Says they've measured the militaries of Europe, and Poland has the strongest army in Europe. Poland has built a magnificent army over the last 7 years.
Poland's spending, I think, 4 or 5% of its GDP on its military. It's having a military buildup, but it's a medium power. Doesn't pose a threat to Russia.
It doesn't have nuclear capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely doesn't. I think they're building their first nuclear reactor right now.
I think the dream of that is
for energy. That's smart.
Yeah, I think the dream of that is that Poland comes in and Europe joins them.
Yeah.
That's where the argument of that is.
So the dirty little secret is so no country has formally come to the aid of Ukraine.
Right.
Supposedly it's
we had to argue with Germany to get involved. Remember, regarding the tanks, they were sitting on the fence.
Germany was a lot smarter than we were. We should have sent them any tanks. We shouldn't have sent Ukraine any weapons because we don't have a national security interest whatsoever in Ukraine.
That's what I'm saying. I think there are secrets there that need to be kept by members of our politics.
This war is not a war of Russian imperialism as we're falsely told by the neocons. It's a war of U.S. imperialism.
Wasn't it? Was it 3 weeks before Kamala Harris went to Europe and said in front of was it NATO or was it another?
Yeah, it was. I think the NATO Security Summit.
And she said she said
February
Ukraine
of
will be a part
2022.
of NATO.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, Russia invades.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. She helped provoke it.
Shocker. So yes, we look, there is no good guy in the ground. Putin's not a good guy. Zelensky's a puppet. We're not a good guy. It's idiot moves all the way, and it's being done to rob us.
Yeah,
That's what it's being done
I mean,
for.
Zelensky's a brutal dictator. He's a Soviet-style dictator. So is Putin.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
he's the guy that canceled
they're like-
elections.
They're
and
moral equivalents. They kill each other's opponents. They
they're so
assassinate people.
corrupt. They're corrupt.
And Ukraine is persecuting the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. He's raiding the churches, arresting the priests.
Does anyone remember?
He's
That's why there's not press
assassinating
there.
members of the Ukrainian parliament
about it.
that disagree with him.
The fact you're not seeing press there tells you, because even the press can swing it to an agenda, but they're not even allowing him in there. And that just tells me they're not what you think they are.
Yeah.
And the agenda they're telling you in America what they are. They're making him the good guy and Putin the bad guy. And they're both bad guys.
Well, it's
Sure.
it's all an interesting story. I mean, just the story of it. I mean, Ukraine stands to make a deal with the UN. The populace of Ukraine vote no. So so then Putin offers them a better deal. So they join that. So
Okay.
uprising start. And then he goes on. The coolest part about it is you remember why the Azov battalion became instead of its kind of a white supremacist gang.
Yeah.
Why did it become a military unit? Well, because the Ukrainians made it illegal to speak Russia, and Eastern Ukraine started separating, and they lost 60% of their military because that was mostly drawn from Eastern Ukraine. So Ukraine went, oh, we got to backfill our military. They went to the white supremacists, and they went to what was then called the Azov gang and made them the Azov battalion.
It's now they're the Azov brigade.
Yes,
So
they keep
they've
growing.
expanded to a multi-$1,000
Okay, it's almost
force.
time.
Yes, I
1,000
know.
force.
You need to watch the show Utopia, and then Percival shows up. He likes to say stuff we're not going to read on air. Sorry, Percival. Norma says, what resources can we read about Putin's real reasoning in regards to Ukraine? The best sources would be neutral newspapers, obviously, papers that aren't tied to either one of them.
Yeah, so there's two books I'd recommend to your listener. One is The War in Ukraine. That was published by liberals, and it details why Biden is he's responsible for both the initial Russian invasion of Ukraine and Crimea in 2014, which he authorized the coup against the democratically elected president of Ukraine.
Publicly.
And then the second one, of course, is he told Putin that Ukraine was going to join NATO, and the dirty little secret is the U.S. the Biden administration behind the scenes opposes Ukrainian membership in NATO.
Exactly.
And
So they
yet he
did
won't
that
declare
for
that.
the perception.
He could have saved Ukraine from invasion.
Could have
if he had
saved the lives of all those
Yeah.
kids that are teenagers fighting war in Ukraine. Like so many are murdered.
A
so
million
many.
Ukrainian soldiers have been killed, maimed, or wounded, and it's all on Biden. Russians invaded, and they're responsible for that. But Putin tried to end the war, within days or weeks after the invasion. We sabotaged it.
What's the second book?
The second book is by Brandon Weichart. He's a really good author, and he's America First. He's big time Trump supporter, and it's called A Disaster of Our Own Making. So that just actually came out. I just started reading it. Came out on October 22nd.
Percival says NATO wasn't established until after World War II. Thank you for the
Thank you, Captain.
hard knowledge. Anyways, he says, Dana White beat his wife. Is that okay? No.
We haven't even talked about Dana White. But I love that you're trolling.
Norma says we need to build and teach how to survive without electricity.
Yeah.
That's the truth right there.
Treadle sewing machines, bicycles that can generate power,
But Norma,
irrigate without power.
the problem
plants.
is that our generations never had to survive without electricity, and without a generation that has, it's hard to put that into your daily life, except for going cold turkey by mistake or emergency. And honestly, I don't think Gen X, I don't even think the boomers know what it'd be like to be without electricity.
All right. And
So
we've
I've got some.
Yeah, we got the Facebook ones.
So David Weiss says, Putin wants victory, not peace. Peace is not in Russian culture. He says it was all crypto, I bet. Going into Martin says okay. So Martin brought this point up really when we were talking about at best, the way they're handling this in this simple, turnover of power and all of this, and how the Dems are like, oh, you know what? We called him a Nazi yesterday, but today we're going to be peaceful.
We're going to help Hitler take
peaceful
power.
transition. Basically, yes.
That's what they're saying.
And so Martin says they conceded too easily. We need to keep our heads on a swivel.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's exactly, you just put it, Martin, you just put it exactly where my head has been. It's like, wait a minute. Yes, I want this transfer of power to be peaceful, but I want Trump locked up in the place where he is safe. And I don't trust many members of our own government at this point. 2 assassination attempts that they know of. I thought there might have even been a third with the
probably deep
people
state
that got sick.
Probably it was domestic deep state, initiated. I don't think it was even a foreign actor that did
the
it.
fact that our Secret Service had not met with the local police in Pennsylvania and hadn't and then shut them down the second they were talking to the press about what they witnessed and the guys on the building, and they pulled our guy that was in the window. All of that is kind of, and we're still not hearing about that investigation. The kids' social media has been wiped.
Yeah.
There's all these
body
different,
was cremated.
Exactly.
So
immediately.
we couldn't even confirm the DNA that it was actually the guy they said it was.
Exactly.
And
the blood on the rooftop to
his
the
apartment
body.
was cleaned and
Yes.
And I suspect that it wasn't the same guy. In fact, the initial guy that they assassinated, they said it was. This was from liberal media sources. He was a guy who's massively pro-Ukraine, massive. He's a huge Democrat activist. If that's something they'd want to cover up.
And right now they have a guy in jail.
Yeah.
Who shot at Trump.
And
who has ties to Ukraine as well.
Who is a recruiter for the Ukrainian Foreign Legion.
That should terrify. This is an inside job.
Ukraine and Zelensky want Trump dead. I have no doubt about it.
Absolutely. So does the FBI that's about to.
Putin doesn't
CIA
want Trump. Putin doesn't want Trump dead. He believes that he can cooperate. He can make deals with an America First president. That's the thing. Even China thinks that they can make a deal with an America First president like Trump, who represents. They can identify that because they are nationalists.
They love their country too.
Yeah, and it's amazing they didn't try to take advantage more of Biden as this spineless collaborator and traitor, and was bought off with tens of millions of dollars of Chinese money.
It's disgusting. And for how long? I mean, he's probably sold out early on because he was such a young senator and he was influential, but he was also influenced by them.
They probably don't like Biden because they've got to keep upping each other to buy him off because he's really for sale and
he's greedy.
He gets expensive.
David says her country would have executed her if that was true. I'm not sure what he's talking about. Martin says, Jared, you just jumped way outside the box.
No, I was talking. That was when I was talking about the first transgender president.
And Michael, my husband, says, I agree with that. He will cut a deal with China, meaning Trump is going to walk in there and cut deals where he can to bring peace to save America. World. Yeah.
Because, so here's the thing that I have trouble with. Some of the, the neocons that talk about Taiwan, they're like, oh, we can't allow China to, take away what would, the semiconductors from Taiwan, because we would take an 8 to 9% hit in our economy and cause another Great Depression. Okay, so what do they think that going to war with China would do with them cutting off all trade with the U.S.?
You may hate Walmart, but you can't shop if there's nothing there.
Even if we survived, we would lose 20% of our GDP, 15 to 20% of our GDP from the loss of all Chinese goods.
And we're thinking, you guys aren't thinking, remember
and the
COVID?
Semiconductors.
China is the one who creates your medications.
Right, 90% of all.
Let that sink in.
Yeah, 90% of life-saving pharmaceuticals are made in China.
We should have them be made here. I mean, Trump's already planning that. RFK is working on that.
Yep.
But that's the thing is we stand to lose just as much as China does. And that's nationalist comes in handy because you both love your country and you're going to do what's best for it. And that means making deals.
I do wonder, does China just want Taiwan for the economic interest? Because it can't be a jealousy interest. Move your phone away from that when you rub it. No, you're okay.
So Martin says China has been buying real estate in the U.S.
Yes. Well, and Chinese people, they've been hiding their money over here forever too. So it's.
Oh, good point, Martin. Martin says North Carolina has learned to live without electricity for a while. How's that going? Because those type of places where people are struggling without those things, are people staying in the wreckage and trying to live without electricity, or are they bringing up generators and making electricity happen? Because that's something we're forgetting is generators, gasoline. These things aren't going to be readily available. And if somebody has one and has storage of one, that's why I worry about a civil war, because people will resort to violence to take something, especially if their child needs insulin and they need to keep a fridge cold and they can't keep medication cold. They're going to go kill whoever they can to get it, to keep their child alive. That's where the animal mentality kicks in and people just lose it. And so I'm wondering, in North Carolina, are they staying where there's no electricity? Are they making arrangements to have electricity, or are they moved?
You're probably getting a mix of all depending on their abilities.
It's controlled there though, so it'd be a great opportunity. I'm not hearing any fighting going on there, but it would be an opportunity to get some idea of what it's like for the people. And I just went through the Facebook post. So we are past 9 o'clock.
Yep. And Norma does say we are still here and can teach baby boomers. Solar and gasoline generators both are being used. She's talking about what's going on in the Carolinas.
So Norma, baby boomers have lived without electricity. Like,
well, she knows how to do that stuff. And there's irrigate without power pumps.
My mother's a boomer, and she's a green thumb. She's a sewer. She's all those things. I don't know that she's ever lived without electricity for long periods. And a lot of our baby boomers are in need of medications that also need to be cold. So I don't know how you teach that. And we are a country that survives on medications. Can I just say I have Hulu and I won't pay for without the commercials. Every commercial break is a pharmaceutical.
Really?
It feels like every time I'm going to see a pharmaceutical commercial, and I think that RFK's addressed this and he's planning on doing it, but you never see a vape commercial or a smoking commercial. And that's because it influences people. And I say this to my kids, and I'm going to say it to adults now who will actually understand. If you can't sell a vape on TV, and you're lucky to sell alcohol, right? But they made it illegal to sell cigarettes or a vape. Why is it legal to sell drugs? And when I say this, they're telling me to talk to my doctor about this drug. So they're selling it to me and I got to sell it to my doctor. Why aren't they just selling it to doctors to sell to me when I get there and I need the drug? How do I know if I need the drug or not? And after it tells you this may cause death as a side effect and all that other stuff, it's like, well, our hands are clean. We told you in the commercial that you might give stroke or death. This is insane. And they're feeding it like to the point where there's too many drugs getting shoved down our throat. And as a nation, we need to heal and get healthy. So that's something I'm extremely excited about with RFK. And I don't agree with him on climate change at all. But I will say that when it comes to health, I totally agree. People can't afford to feed their kids healthy foods because they're priced out of it. And there's so much garbage in our foods that our kids are getting sick younger and younger and younger, and they're staying sick forever. And it feels like it's all by design because these lobbyists are in DC and they own these people. I mean, I think pharmaceuticals own Fauci.
Or he owns them.
He owns them. He's got a shareholder.
Yeah.
He's a shareholder.
I don't know. I think
COVID probably made him a billionaire.
They're probably doing a Dutch rudder.
He created the virus that he subsequently,
profited from.
Profited from and helping to invent the vaccines.
Well, and he didn't have a great track record with HIV. And what's
no,
sad
he did
is
not.
that people don't remember that or know that he was part of that. often see pharmaceuticals for treating HIV, and it's not killing people anymore.
Mm.
I understand the need for these drugs, but you don't get a little bit suspicious when the same people who are shutting everything down are profiting from the one thing that's going to open everything up. It's so nightmarish to me.
I would say the 80s was an ugly time for the U.S. being bought, and it was bought under quite often a Republican administration who I hope they weren't implicit. I hope they just didn't know better. Norma says, we know how camping can teach a lot. And her husband, Ron, grew up without an indoor bathroom. And then she says, big pharma is an enemy.
It's a double-edged sword.
We've got to sit back and take realistic looks at things, and that'll probably aid us in the future for who we select, what kind of business we get into them with. Everyone's going to work in their best economic interest, and big pharma is definitely robbing us blind for their best economic interest, along with Fauci. We can't have government administrative offices that become the highest paid bureaucratic individual in the land and give them total power and have no guardrails around them. We just can't do that again. We've got to start controlling that.
So last comment, and Martin says, the volunteers from the citizens of this country have been extraordinary. Forget FEMA, North Carolina is on the mend. That makes me extremely happy. And that's how it was meant to be. It was never meant that government comes in and saves the citizens. The citizens save themselves. And that's something that we've lost. People are waiting for the government. In fact, no, let's all go help. And with enough of us, they can build a road in 3 days. When it's citizens, when it's the government, it's 3 years and tons of red tape. So, and too much money.
Thank you, Hoover. Okay, David, will you shout out, just tell everyone again your Substack, where they can find you?
Can you type out the Substack?
Yeah, you bet.
Sure.
You type it on the comments here, and then he'll type it. Probably.
Find out, where people can find you, where Paul can come and talk with you. I would like to get you guys together. May not be agreement on stuff, but I think you don't have to agree to get good heads together to figure out solutions.
It keeps auto-correcting, so I'm not going to be able to. Not sure I'm going to be able.
What
to
do we got here?
So it's dpyne.substack.com. dpynesubstack.com. That's DPYNE.
DPYNE.
Yeah.
.substack.com.
Yeah, so that's my Real War newsletter. I've got probably 100 plus articles there, and a lot of people will write articles of maybe 700 words. My articles are really long and detailed because I'm really solutions.
I know.
focused.
I've read 2 of your articles. You sent them to me before both previous shows, and I read through them, and yeah, they're very detailed and lots of information and citations.
Yeah. So yeah, I really appreciate you having me on the show. And our EMP task force website is emptaskforce.us. Again, emptaskforce.us. If you can go there and volunteer to help us out at the Utah state leadership level, and we can hook you up. And we're trying to educate our policymakers as well as our citizens. We've had meetings with obviously. Chris Stewart when he was in Congress, and also our new senator, and
John Curtis.
Yeah, John Curtis, and Senator Mike Lee's, Rob Axon, who was the state director at the time for Senator Mike Lee.
That's the state party chair now.
So we've had meetings with all those, as well as other members of Congress here in Utah.
Yeah, I think it's incumbent on us as citizens to get ourselves prepared. Even if the government's not, that means you get yourself some food, you get yourself some security, get yourself a plan.
Firearms.
Yep.
That's
buy alcohol and tobacco.
The most important part
better
is
than gold in a bad situation.
The most important part is a plan. Some people have better plans than others, and that's that's obvious. I mean, there is monetary restrictions on what you can do, but do what you can so that if stuff happens, at least you're not a victim that has to be rescued. At least you can hold out a little longer while people who didn't plan can be rescued, and you're not a drain on that.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Martin. He says good show, and Norma says great show. I think
Thank
you
you.
have an open invitation here.
Oh yeah,
Thanks. I
anytime.
appreciate it.
There's
Yeah,
so
love it.
much knowledge to be had here. And I know that, it's a crazy time for our country, and I think we're in a really good place. We were together in Milwaukee, and it was really amazing there. But I know I had no regrets. When I went to bed on Monday night, I had done everything possible to get Donald Trump
you're awesome.
and down ticket elected. I know you were the same way.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is we got a miracle. God is good. We had an amazing outcome. The American people are strong, and they're tired. They're tired, and they need something. So I appreciate that. I think you're a patriot for sure.
Thanks. You
I'm
guys
so
are too.
grateful that you
Appreciate it.
live right here in our county, and that you're working to get people educated on these things, especially our government, who should already know this stuff.
Right.
We should have fixed this 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We should have, could have, right?
It's our government. Remember, we are chattel.
Wait, will a nuclear reactor or something that's, if you build one, will it be affected by an EMP?
Yeah, there's a high chance that we could have 93 nuclear meltdowns, up to 93 in the event of a super EMP event.
Which a meltdown would be catastrophic? Would it be like
it would produce radioactive material in the air, similar to fallout.
Chernobyl?
Yeah, on a small, smaller scale than a nuclear blast, obviously, but
wow. So
still
again,
a risk of radioactivity.
So maybe our politics know not to build
Are there
one
fail safes that they can build in for that stuff?
Yeah, if you can
I
protect
think,
satellites.
I'm not a technical expert on that, but I do think there are measures that can be taken to harden nuclear reactors.
I know
France
has a good model for theirs. They don't build great big ones. They build them smaller.
Yeah.
And they build one type. So they're professionals at building them. But I do wonder, do they have fail safes built into them? France hasn't had any issues with.
So the most important thing with a nuclear reactor or an EMP event is some kind of secure backup power system, to be able to shut it down safely.
Yeah,
to prevent the meltdown.
Cool it to stable, right?
The loss of main power. Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
See, that's a whole nother show, y'all. So you need to tune in, and thank you for those that have liked us and are following us on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you for your participation, everybody.
Yeah. Have a good night.
The show? Okay. Tomorrow they're doing a Trump celebration, Trump train. Just go to Tooele County Republican Party for details, and it's going to be big. So if you want to go there, and then did I say something else was happening next week? I don't know. We're just still happy. I hope you're happy. Be good to your neighbors, especially the ones with blue hair. They need your kindness right now. But we're hoping that it will make America great for everybody. They'll feel it too, and they'll feel it in a positive way, and just be that positive light, because that's something Trump has shown is kindness, mercy. He wants this country to succeed, and then he knows that everybody will gain from it. So I hope that all of you know that.
Should we all go get septum piercings in uniformity with them? And
nope.